Tuesday. We'll catch you guys on Big News Wednesday tomorrow. Woo! Get some!
Welcome to TYT. I'm your host, Anna Kasparian. Cenk is out today, and I'm sure he's regretting it. But Emma Vigeland is here, and I'm certainly not regretting that. Emma, good to have you on the show.
Oh, thanks so much for having me back. I mean, who is going to say down goes Trump? Down goes Trump.
I mean,
got to be one of us, right? I mean, I kind of just said it, so.
First of all, let's start with the, of course, traditional sound clip that we go with when someone goes down. Let's start. Let's see if DJ Bart Kyle has it. 3, 2.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Down goes Trump. Down goes Trump. Not quite yet, but today was his arraignment, and that's going to take up a huge portion of the show today. We're going to talk about the indictment, the charges within the indictment. We're going to get through all of that. I do want to also note that tonight after the main show, when we would typically do our bonus episode for our members, we are gonna do live coverage of Trump's press conference on his arraignment. John Idarola was kind enough to come in and do that coverage with me. So we're gonna leave that open to everyone. Everyone in the public can watch that coverage. But after that, there will be a shorter members only portion. So we'll put that behind a paywall. But with that said, let's get started, Emma. There's a lot of details to get to. Alvin Bragg has done a press conference explaining what the charges are. And I think it's actually a really fascinating case. I'm curious to see how it plays out. So let's get right to it. Donald Trump was arrested and arraigned today in the case involving hush money payments to Stormy Daniels in the lead up to the 2016 election. As you can see, he is arriving to the courthouse to turn himself in, and he pleaded not guilty to 34 counts of falsifying business records in the first degree. These are felony charges. In fact, they were bumped up from misdemeanor to felony charges because the accusation here is that he falsified these documents with the intent to commit another crime, and that other crime is, of course, illegal campaign activity, illegal campaign contributions. We'll get into the more minute details of that in just a moment. He had 3 defense attorneys present with him as he was pleading not guilty to these charges. If convicted, he does face a discretionary maximum of 4 years in prison. And I say discretionary because it's really up to the judge to decide how much time he serves. But if I were to put money on this, I would bet that he will not see the inside of a prison cell over this particular prosecution. There are other cases and other potential trials he could be facing, including his attempts to overturn the results of the 2020 election in Georgia in particular. Now, with that said, why don't we go to the Manhattan District Attorney, Alvin Bragg, who explained what the indictment means in detail. Let's watch.
Earlier this afternoon, Donald Trump was arraigned on a New York Supreme Court indictment returned by a Manhattan grand jury on 34 felony counts of falsifying business records in the first degree. Under New York state law, it is a felony to falsify business records with intent to defraud and an intent to conceal another crime. That is exactly what this case is about. 34 false statements made to cover up other crimes. These are felony crimes in New York State, no matter who you are. We cannot and will not normalize serious criminal conduct. The defendant repeatedly made false statements on New York business records. He also caused others to make false statements.
We're gonna go to more sound from Alvin Bragg in just a moment, but based on what he said, I wanted to kind of break things down a little more and talk about this with you, Emma, because what I appreciated about Alvin Bragg's statement there was there shouldn't be a 2-tier justice system where some people get prosecuted for some crimes, others don't get prosecuted for similar crimes. And while this might very well help Trump with the Republican voter base, and we are seeing that reflected in the polling, the political ramification should not, in my opinion, should not be calculated into any prosecutorial decisions. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I totally agree that their decisions should not be made based on any kind of political machinations or what this ends up, how this ends up affecting Trump in terms of the presidential race. There's no constitutional provision that says he can't run while under investigation. He could even be sitting in a jail cell, which Eugene Debs was when he ran for president almost 100 years ago, around maybe more. I can't think off the top of my head. So there's no reason legally that he's precluded from running. So might as well pursue these charges. And what's so ironic about all of this to me is that, yes, he should be treated like any citizen in New York, but he wasn't up until the point that he started running for president. And I'm not saying that this is a political prosecution. I mean, it's just what cause them to look into it. But the point is that Trump had to clean up all of his messes with these dozens of counts that he's being charged with. Affairs he's had, allegedly. Maybe an illegitimate child that he may have had, allegedly, that he tried to allegedly pay a doorman for to cover up. These were all kind of sloppy patchwork CYA attempts, because when he ran for president in 2016, he wasn't trying to win, he was trying to make money. And so he did not have his ducks in a row, because he has a very sketchy past with Felix Sater, with Roy Cohn, the attorney for the mafia, and other shady characters. Like, this guy's past is not squeaky clean. And so this was his effort with his dodgy lawyer, Michael Cohen, who went to jail for this, to clean up his past record, and he just wasn't very good at it. So that's why we are in this situation. And it seems like, just based on the number of cases that they have, that they've been able to develop a pattern of behavior, which will be key for any kind of prosecution.
Absolutely, and it is interesting to see all of these criminal investigations bear down on Trump now, because he was always really just thought of as like Teflon Don, someone who kind of brazenly, in some cases, violates certain laws and then doesn't suffer any consequences for it. But there is more from the press conference featuring prosecutor Alvin Bragg. So why don't we take a look at that, because he gets into more of the important details into what this indictment really means and why he felt the need to bring this case forward.
The defendant claimed that he was paying Michael Cohen for legal services performed in 2017. This simply was not true. For 9 straight months, the defendant held documents in his hand containing this key lie: that he was paying Michael Cohen for legal services performed in 2017. And he personally signed checks for payments to Michael Cohen for each of these 9 months. In total, the grand jury found there were 34 documents with this critical false statement.
Okay, so let me break that down further for you guys in case you missed these details as they came out years ago, by the way. I mean, it has taken years for a prosecutor to actually investigate and press charges against Trump on this, because we've known a lot of these details before. So remember, his former fix-it attorney, the fixer, Michael Cohen, he had mortgaged his own home in order to come up with the funds to essentially pay the hush money payment to Stormy Daniels. Now, Michael Cohen, of course, wants to be reimbursed. Homeboy mortgaged his house. So what happened was the Trump organization cut him a check, and that check was essentially sold as payment for legal services. It wasn't legal services. It was reimbursement for the hush money payments that Michael Cohen had allegedly paid Stormy Daniels. And so since Michael Cohen, first of all, Michael Cohen already went to jail as a result of this. But since the Trump camp essentially tried to pass this off as nothing more than paying some legal fees associated with Trump's campaign or the Trump organization, what ended up happening was that was, of course, false. And they paid a little extra to Michael Cohen, knowing that since this was going to be passed off as income for Cohen, he'd have to pay taxes on it, right? So he pays taxes, and there's potentially tax fraud violations involved in this as well, which I think is super, super interesting. I want to go to one more video featuring Alvin Bragg, and then we'll unpack that as well. Let's watch.
The evidence will show that he did so to cover up crimes relating to the 2016 election. Donald Trump, executives at the publishing company American Media Incorporated, Mr. Cohen, and others agreed in 2015 to a catch and kill scheme. That is, a scheme to buy and suppress negative information to help Mr. Trump's chance of winning the election. As part of this scheme, Donald Trump and others made 3 payments to people who claim to have negative information about Mr. Trump. To make these payments, they set up shell companies, and they made yet more false statements, including, for example, in AMI, American Media Incorporated's business records.
So I want to talk about AMI real quick because it's super important to understand AMI's involvement in this. So AMI is essentially the parent company for the National Enquirer. So when Alvin Bragg mentions the catch and kill scheme, it was essentially an effort by the Trump camp with the help of AMI to buy stories that were incriminating toward Trump and then kill the stories, right? So what was really interesting about this indictment was these allegations in regard to how the AMI CEO helped to kill a story involving a possible love child that Trump had. According to the filing, in or about October or November of 2015, the AMI CEO learned that a former Trump Tower doorman was trying to sell information regarding a child that the defendant, meaning Trump, had allegedly fathered out of wedlock. At the AMI CEO's direction, AMI negotiated and signed an agreement to pay the doorman $30,000 to acquire exclusive rights to the story. AMI purchased the information from the doorman without fully investigating his claims, but the AMI CEO directed that the deal take place because of his agreement with the defendant, meaning Trump, and lawyer A. I'm assuming they're referring to Michael Cohen when they say lawyer A. Now, AMI later learned that the story might not be true, but they did not release the rights to it or change anything until Trump had secured the 2016 presidential win, which I thought was interesting as well. So there are multiple payments being made. You've got the payment to Stormy Daniels, you've got the payment to the doorman through AMI in the catch and kill scheme. And when we talk about the charges against Trump being bumped up to a felony, they can only be bumped up to a felony if there was falsified documents with the intent to commit another crime. In this case, the other crime is campaign violations, because there are obviously limits to the amount of money that you can donate to a campaign or spend on behalf of a candidate in a campaign, and clearly $130,000 goes well above that cap, and so does the $30,000. So hopefully that all makes sense. I have got more details, but Emma, I want to jump to you. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, the whole case in its entirety, as I indicated earlier, does seem to lay out a pattern of behavior. And it just shows that this is how Donald Trump has done his business. He behaves like a mobster.
Yeah.
Like this is how mobsters handle business. It's no coincidence that he is buddies with, as I mentioned earlier, a guy like Roy Cohn, other shady figures that may or may not have been involved in the Russian mob and in the mob scene in New York. And this is how he knows how to operate his business. Trump could have handed the cash to the doorman himself. The problem is that he's cooking his books and seems to have a record of doing this within the Trump organization in general, which is the separate civil investigation, or the I shouldn't say that. That's right, Anna? It's the civil investigation into the Trump organization. Either way, the other one that the New York.
Yeah, with Weisselberg.
Yes.
The Weisselberg, I think it was a criminal investigation because Weisselberg was eventually sentenced to prison time as a result.
Gotcha. It's been a whirlwind of a day. So
there's a lot of investigations going on involving Trump. So I hear you.
Either way, I want to point out two things that Alvin Bragg is kind of hinging his case on, where I feel there may be some pitfalls. Mm-hmm. One is that he's bumped up these 34 counts to felony charges. And as he made the case in that press conference, it's because of the campaign finance element, the fact that it was involved in the national presidential campaign. That's the connection that he's making. Mm-hmm. That's going to be one area where Trump's lawyers kind of try to poke holes in the charges and say, this is egregious, you're going above and beyond because it's a political prosecution. And they may be able to get a toehold there. The other thing that's really interesting, and Elie Mystal broached this in his piece in The Nation, is that this case would have been much stronger had Cy Vance brought it in 2021, because there's an argument that you can make about bookkeeping charges and particular fraud charges that the statute of limitations has expired because it's a 5-year statute of limitations. And so that was in 2021, it would have been 5 years. In 2023, Bragg is arguing through different avenues that this is, it still falls under the statute of limitations. But Trump's lawyers are gonna use, I think, those two things, plus the overall political persecution element to try to fight this. But the reality is that
yeah,
Trump
I just wanted to jump in real quick on what you said
ahead.
before I forget, because you just raised really, really important points. So you're right about that. In fact, Trump's attorneys are trying to get this case completely dismissed using something that's actually unique to New York, known as the Clayton Act or Clayton motion. So what that would do is essentially argue. Let me get you the exact wording. I can't even believe this is a thing, but the Clayton motion states that it is in the interest of justice, regardless of the merits of the case, to dismiss the case. So I guess the argument here might be that it's better for the country, I guess, to not go after or to prosecute, criminally prosecute a former president who is now a candidate for the next presidential race. The other thing that you mentioned was Cyrus Vance and how Cyrus Vance should have brought this case. I think that's a fair point for sure. But during the press conference, Alvin Bragg mentioned that he has evidence that Cyrus Vance did not have when he was the Manhattan district attorney. So we don't know what that evidence is yet, but I am curious to find out about that. And then in regard to the statute of limitations, Alvin Bragg is arguing that because of the coronavirus pandemic and because the right to a speedy trial was essentially put on hold as a result of the pandemic, that the statute of limitations should be somewhat extended in this particular case. I don't know if that's gonna play out the way that Alvin Bragg wants it to, but I agree with you that it's a little shaky to say the least.
Yeah, and so that's gonna be his reasoning, and that's totally valid, right? You have to make the strongest case that you possibly can. Those are just some of the weaknesses in the case. But here's another weakness. Trump's a crook. and everyone knows it. And the lawyers that he has hired are not the top of the line. I mean, basically every lawyer in New York has said no to this guy because they don't want to do business with him. Everyone knows he's a crook. One, in New York, yeah, there's a lot of people who are more liberally minded, even if it's not economically so. But also even the more conservative lawyers, they think that he's uncouth and that they've seen him have all these bankruptcies, not pay his legal bills, not pay bills with contractors and other things, and they don't want to deal with him. So the thing that helps Alvin Bragg is that most of the legal profession has said, much like how in the US, banks didn't want to loan him money because he wasn't paying them back. Lawyers don't want to hire him because he's such a terrible client. He has a really bizarre legal team filled with guys that look like they're extras in mob boss movies and women that look like, he's like, I have a threshold, you have to be a 9 or above, or just they look like they're Newsmax anchors basically. And and from what I hear from people who have some at least secondary knowledge of the legal profession here in New York, this is certainly not the A team, it's not the B team, it's not the C team. Trump might be in hot water just because of the pattern of behavior, his long record of being a crook, and also just the fact that the legal team behind him, he shouldn't trust them to give good advice because it's Trump.
No, great points all around. I mean, just to give you guys a sense of how much of a liability Donald Trump is if you're looking to defend him. The lawyers representing him in the stolen documents investigation ended up being incriminated because Trump, I guess the story is, lied to them about what kind of documents he had in his possession. So then they lied to the FBI. And now, as far as I've read, it could develop into something more, but at least one of the lawyers will now have to testify in that case. So we'll see how that all plays out. But remember, in my opinion, the Alvin Bragg prosecution is the weakest of them all. And there's the potential Georgia prosecution. There is the investigation into the stolen classified documents. I think those stories, those investigations could potentially yield bigger charges, potentially prison time, although I wouldn't ever bet money on that, especially when it comes to someone in a position of power or formally in a position of power. We'll obviously update you guys as we learn more about this. For now, though, we're gonna take a brief break. When we come back, I wanted to talk a little bit about the conservative reaction to this prosecution. I gotta be honest, it's just fun to watch. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna laugh at Charlie Kirk and more when we come back.
Live like a capitalist every single day.
Antifa.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to our first social break of the day. I'm gonna go right to our YouTube members. Lots of new members. Just wanna say thank you to you guys for keeping us honest and independent. Jennifer Rice, Brendan Dalton, Canadian Moose Rider, AKA Maple Syrup Dragon, who also gifted a TYT membership. Thank you for that. Chris Birch gifted 5 TYT memberships on this fascinating news day. And Florida Dragon also gifted 5 TYT memberships. Thank you for the support. Let's read some comments from our YouTube members. Inky Blue Jay, who also became a member, says, terrible time for Cenk to go on vacation. Agreed, I know he's dying right now. So Pitchforks Dragon says, DA Bragg had to go to build a bear workshop. Had to go to a Build-A-Bear workshop to find handcuffs small enough for Trump's tiny, tiny hands. That's hilarious. Peter Hamby writes it and says, losing their voices, concerns to reality, starting the downfall. Great poem, we got one more. Right left to crying, face stormy allegations, he no longer brag. I see what you did there with the name brag. Very good, very good. Chichi Massey says, Anna's down goes Trump owns. Sup, Emma. The VIG is in the hizza.
Sup.
LaShawn Lewis says, why am I not surprised they already have Trump t-shirts? Oh, I wanted to get to that, but we ran out of time. Yes, Donald Trump is already trying to raise money off of this, which shouldn't be surprising, but I don't think the Trump t-shirt is the win he thinks it is, right?
No, I mean,
go ahead.
He wants to be Johnny Cash. That's his thing, right? But why didn't he just wait like 2 seconds to get the actual mugshot? I mean, that is the prime opportunity to actually monetize this to its fullest extent. He's just impatient. He wants the cash now.
Exactly. He's a businessman, Emma. There's money to be made. Okay. There's a prosecution to exploit for financial gain.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. Bud Rowland says Trump pardoned himself in his head. I'm pretty sure he did. I mean, he thinks all he needs to do is think good things and good things will happen. In our super chat section, we've got Stinky Feet who says, I'm not gonna lie, it was satisfying seeing Donnie Boy perp walking into the courthouse today. Give me more of that. Down goes Trump. Lars writes in and says, I may have missed something in the news reporting, but I am surprised that the progressive left is so quiet about NATO getting a new 800-mile border with Russia, lack of interest or time. So I did see that story. We might cover it tomorrow, but clearly there's a lot going on today. But I will say this, if Putin thought invading Ukraine was a smart idea in deterring other nations from joining NATO, obviously he was mistaken. Because I mean, I would want to join NATO and I would want that extra protection after seeing the invasion into Ukraine. So I don't blame any country for wanting to be part of NATO after that. All right, we got to get back to the show. We'll see you there. back to TYT. Anna Kasparian and Emma Vigeland with you. Emma is, of course, the host of Majority Report. Emma, let the fine people know where to find your programming as if they don't already know.
The host, the only host. Although, truly, for the next 10
My favorite
days,
host,
just
at
gonna,
least.
Well, thank you. I won't tell Sam you said that.
You can tell him.
I'll be hosting actually for the next 10 days because Sam's away on vacation. So youtube.com/ actually, I don't even know. Just look up the Majority Report and you'll find it. We're live every day at noon Eastern. It's a great show. Encourage you guys to check it out.
My favorite thing or favorite mistake I made was yesterday when I told everybody that there's a new TYT podcast dedicated to Trump's indictment. And then I actually carefully read what I was supposed to say. And we don't have a new podcast dedicated to Trump's indictment. So anyway.
Well, maybe this one, at least today, this is the new podcast that we're talking about Trump's indictment. There you go.
Exactly. Well, we're gonna continue on with that coverage. The next story really has to do with the reaction coming from Trump's avid supporters and defenders. Let's do it.
We're not going to do the hopium thing. This is a bad day for America. This is unspeakably evil what they are doing to our republic. It's a funeral.
Emma, apparently daddy can do wrong because the right wing, especially the right wing media, is not reacting well to Trump's indictment. He has officially been indicted. He has pleaded not guilty to the 34 counts of falsifying documents, all felony counts. And I gotta say, I mean, watching Charlie Kirk refer to this as a funeral is pretty hilarious. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I love to see it. You love to see them cry and whine about it, especially because, I mean, we've heard so much about law and order from the right, and just they only seem to think that prosecutors should be looking into going after Black people, poor people, people who they can demonize and make into a permanent underclass in society, non-white people, et cetera. But then when it turns on the powerful, oh no, well, this could happen to you too. Well, it is already happening to other people, Charlie Kirk. It's just that you don't want people to know that fact. And the only people that you truly care about who are seeing justice at this moment are the most powerful.
So let me just get this off my chest, because for me, having a two-tier justice system leads to distrust of that system for good reason. And we shouldn't have a situation in which people with wealth and power get away with all sorts of crimes, whereas everyone else deals with the pretty harsh consequences if they do the exact same thing. So look, if this were a Democrat, I would have no problem with the prosecution. I would feel the exact same way about it. In fact, if you want to go back to the Obama administration, he killed an American citizen, drone striked and murdered the guy, which very well could have been a terrorist who should have been prosecuted. He should have had his day in trial, his day in front of a court. And that was Anwar al-Awlaki, which they not only killed him, they then later did a drone strike and killed his teenage son as well. But that goes against the law, and I would have no problem if there were actually prosecutors, federal prosecutors, who had the courage to bring charges against him. My point in bringing all of this up is to say no one should be above the law. That includes the Trump administration officials, Donald Trump himself. That includes Obama-era politicians and Obama himself. That includes the entirety of the Bush administration. Well, at least when it comes to the war crimes that were committed under the Bush administration and the illegal wiretapping that was also taking place under the Bush administration. None of these folks were ever prosecuted for those things. This is the first time you have a former president facing criminal charges. And yes, it's a historic moment, but again, for me, this isn't about a partisan attack. This is really about ensuring that we hold everyone accountable regardless of who they are. With that said, I do want to go to more of Charlie Kirk's whining about his daddy dealing with some consequences after he allegedly paid hush money payments and then falsified records after the fact. Let's watch.
Some people say, well, Charlie, come on, give us some of the positive. And we're going to talk about that. but when you go to a funeral, you don't kind of turn around and say, hey, what's the good news here? You kind of realize the time, place, and manner and the setting that you're saying goodbye to something. And that's what we're doing today. And we've been calling it a funeral. It's a funeral for our republic, funeral for the country that existed. And we're going to talk about what we can do. That doesn't mean that we're now going to give up, but there is a moment where today you must grieve. You must acknowledge and admit this is nasty, this is ghastly, this is disgusting, and this is wrong. You cannot lie to yourself. This has never been done before. They're doing it for absolutely immoral, illegal, and unconstitutional reasons.
I would love a little bit of specificity from Charlie Kirk. Exactly what is illegal? I mean, all of those accusations against the prosecution here. Can you be specific? What are you referring to? I mean, it seems as though there's quite a bit of evidence that is incriminating toward Donald Trump, and his own personal attorney ended up spending time in prison for this same issue. Why should everyone around Trump face the consequences, but not Trump himself? It's just ridiculous.
Absolutely. And I mean, to add to your point earlier, Anna, it's so important that the left frames this as just the beginning of what accountability should look like for powerful people. As you said, George W. Bush and Dick Cheney should have been in prison for lying to the American public and killing hundreds of thousands of Iraqis on an illegal basis. Plus, just Karl Rove, you name it, other members of that administration. And the reason that Charlie Kirk feels that this is such an existential threat to his ideology and to America as he knows it is because he actually preferred that system where the powerful were able to get away with their crimes. And for Trump, like, this is just business crime stuff. That's where again, the left has to reframe it as well. Yeah, business crimes often are not prosecuted whatsoever. I mean, Trump was a corrupt businessman for decades before this. And he was so in the public eye that anyone could go after him if they actually wanted to, because he was so brazen about it with his gold-plated toilet and everything. The business crime element, that's already under prosecuted. Then let's talk about people who actually have been in government and have committed illegal acts. Functioning democracies outside of this country actually go after people for, say, trying to overturn the democratic results of an election. In Bolivia, this just happened with Inés. She is because she attempted a coup. She is in the midst of prosecution because that's how a functioning democracy should operate. You try to overturn the will of the people, we're putting you in jail. And Trump has tried to do that tenfold, 20-fold, 30-fold. So let's not stop with Trump. I'm talking about some of the people outside of that courtroom who also were instrumental in trying to overturn the election. Marjorie Taylor Greene, then we can go to Paul Gosar. We can go to other members of state legislatures that were incredibly aggressive. Sorry?
Jim Jordan. I mean, there's plenty of Republican lawmakers who were part of that scheme and have not faced any prosecution for it. You're right.
Exactly. They're hinging their analysis right now on the fact that this has to do with, business corruption, which largely the Republican Party, they're okay with because they love deregulation. They love rich guys to do whatever they want. But then we're gonna get to the Georgia prosecution. Then we're gonna see some of the other dominoes fall. And that's the more substantive stuff. And they're gonna try to find a way around it and say, it's all lies and all of that. But the cracks begin to form. And I don't know when that reaches the Republican base that's fully drank the Kool-Aid. And if this even affects Trump's chances. I mean, there was a YouGov Yahoo poll that showed him go up versus DeSantis in a head-to-head matchup after the indictment. So in terms of his political prospects, who knows? Because they have influencers like Charlie Kirk feeding them the same BS over and over. But the point is just that this is just the beginning of what a real society should do when it comes to accountability for the powerful.
I totally agree with you. And one of the critiques that I keep seeing on social media in regard to why this is actually a terrible moment in America, that this means moving forward, we're all gonna deal with endless investigations and potential criminal prosecution of politicians on the right, on the left. And look, my argument in response to that is, let them have it. Good, right? If politicians know that they're not above the law, whether they're Democrats or Republicans. I don't care about political ideology here, right? If they know that they could potentially face prosecution for it, maybe they'll think twice before breaking the law. I don't think that's a bad thing. Currently, there were no deterrents in place. You had a system that essentially communicated to our lawmakers, to our executive branch. Do what you want. There really won't be any consequences because we're really concerned that if we prosecute, that'll set a bad precedent. What's the bad precedent? That there are consequences for committing crimes? Even when you're in a position of power?
Let's do it. Yeah. We'll look into Nancy Pelosi for insider trading.
Great.
Deal. We'll do
Love
it now.
Love it.
We'll look into Joe Manchin for his corruption and the fact that he enriches himself off of his own position in the Senate. Like this, the problem that they have is that they're all crooks, basically. Like there's a disproportionate number of people who have skeletons to hide in their closet on the right than on the left. And on the left, we disavow people like Joe Manchin and Nancy Pelosi and Obama for the illegal drone strikes. Unlike you guys who wrap your arms around them because they think, oh my gosh, well, then if they look into me, Charlie Kirk's like, they might look into the funding when I bust a bunch of people in for January 6th.
Yeah, that's a really interesting take, Emma, and I think there's something to that. I do want to go to this next clip featuring Dennis Prager because it's short. It's short, but it tells you everything you need to know about Dennis Prager. Let's watch.
I need a sip of my coffee so I don't fall asleep in here.
Donald Trump has as good a chance at a fair trial in Manhattan. Yeah. As a black did in the South in 1900.
I mean, this guy just can't help himself.
A black.
The argument is stupid to begin with, but he had to go that extra layer or that extra level by saying a black, because of course it's Dennis Prager, can't help himself. But anyway,
a black.
The argument has also been made by Donald Trump and his attorneys. They don't believe that Trump would get a fair trial because of the fact that New York is, considered a blue state. They want to move the trial to Staten Island because the argument is that the potential jury in Staten Island would be more friendly to Donald Trump, maybe lean more conservative. I don't think that's even necessarily true. I mean, Manhattan is solidly blue.
It's definitely true.
Oh, it is? Okay, interesting.
Definitely true. Staten Island is a very conservative area. Every other borough of the 5 is blue except for Staten Island where all the cops and firefighters live.
Okay, that makes sense. Because I was thinking, is it conservative in the context of super blue Manhattan, or is it actually a conservative part of New York?
No, like deep red over there. Yeah,
okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so that's accurate. That's true. But I mean, they also could just cut to the chase and say they want a white jury. That too, that achieves a similar outcome for them. But what? Sorry to cut you off there, Anna. But what Prager said, like Marjorie Taylor Greene was saying that this is just like Mandela and Jesus.
We have that video actually. We do have that video. I actually want to skip ahead. Let's go to the Marjorie Greene videos. We've got 2 of them. Let's start with the first one.
We will never back down, and we will stand in support of our very incredible, amazing, best president in history of my lifetime, and innocent, and I mean, think about this. President Trump is joining some of the most incredible people in history being arrested today. Nelson Mandela was arrested, served time in prison. Jesus was arrested and murdered by the Roman government.
I'm surprised she didn't say the Jews, just right up there.
She compared Donald Trump to Mandela and Jesus.
Yeah.
Jesus.
You know who else was arrested? Jeffrey Epstein.
Oh my God. She's
you
a lunatic.
Want to play this game?
She's a lunatic. I mean, absolute lunatic.
Ted Bundy.
Imagine thinking anyone in a position of power should be above the law. And that's what Marjorie Greene thinks. And in fact, goes the extra mile to compare him to Mandela. I mean, so incredibly insulting to Nelson Mandela.
I mean, we said it on the show today, Anna, but it would have been a perfect moment for Michael to be here to do right-wing Mandela.
Absolutely.
But it is just interesting to me how she comes up with those examples. And by the way, not sure if you know this, the guy that she's speaking with there is her new boyfriend.
Cool.
Just something to.
Is that really? Is that true? I didn't know that.
Yes, gazing into each other's eyes there. That's what that's the word on the street here.
We gotta get it off the screen. It's making me super uncomfortable. It grosses me out. Anyway, I'm sure there's gonna be plenty more right-wing reaction as this case unfolds. We will fill you in as we learn more. For now, we're gonna take a brief break. When we come back though, we are gonna switch gears. There's other news happening today that I wanna talk about, including, let's see, what are we gonna talk about? Ooh, well, it is a Donald Trump related story, but I think the ad that he has already put out against Ron DeSantis is a perfect example of how Democrats should play hardball. You'll see what I mean when we come back. See you in a few.
Now, where's Mandela? Well, Mandela's dead. Now, where's Mandela? Well, Mandela's dead.
I will never forget the George Bush Mandela moment. It's one of my favorite Bush moments. Maybe if we have time later today, we'll bring that video into like the bonus episode or something, because my favorite moment in that Trump clip, not Trump, Bush clip is, you could tell there's someone in the audience who like lets him know Mandela's not dead, no. And you could see it in his face, like there's a little bit of panic in his face, but he keeps going. He just keeps going.
Yeah. Can't get fooled again. Can't fool me again.
Well, Mandela's dead.
Can't fool me again. That
Mandela's dead.
Mandela's still alive.
Oh my gosh, so embarrassing. All right, lots of comments to get to. Peter Hamby has a question for you, Emma. Cooking books, Emma? I have an inkling that it's not going to taste good, just covering the results. I don't know. I mean, there was a reference there that I don't get, but
I think it's, taking my cooking books thing at face value, and I would say don't try it. Do not try it. Try that at home for sure.
Do you have a cooking book going? Is that what's happening?
No, I said cooking books like Trump was cooking books.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, I do not. But like I've been getting pretty good at cooking. Maybe I got to share some of my we'll trade secrets, Anna.
So one of our viewers, Mr. Keister, sent me his, I've talked about this before, but his garlic spaghetti recipe, and it's literally like 3 ingredients. It's olive oil, garlic, spaghetti, and it's so good. I make it like multiple times a week. I should probably stop.
No, I'm gonna make that tonight, except I do egg noodles. It's just, it's like the easiest dinner, especially if I have to, work later, so.
No, I hear you on that. That's why I make that meal quite often. All right, let's go to Marcus Otero, who says, love TYT, got my mom watching it recently. She loves how you talk to us like real people and the newscasters when she was growing up. Thanks for keeping up the good fight. Thank you for that comment. And hi, Mom. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. Thomas Daniel says, his followers deliver us fear. I'm holding my sanity dear, but Trump will be jailed. His ship has been sailed, and slowly he will disappear. That is a hopeful poem, and I want it to be true, but let's just not get too excited, okay? Let's just hold. Let's hold and see how this all plays out. Esto Bizzle for Shizzle writes in and says, Donnie boy, the crimes are calling. It appears to be the case. You are right about that. All right, let's move on up to our Twitch community. I want to read some comments from you guys. Angels Pierre 100 resub for 16 months. Honestly, I didn't think this day would ever come, but I'm glad I was wrong. Lord Cornwall 86 says, hey everyone, I got accepted into graduate school today. I'm working on getting scholarships and grants to pay for everything. Luckily, I'm going to a good local university and don't need to pay for room and board. Congratulations, super excited for you. And yes, I think that's the same thing I did. I stayed local and it definitely kept costs low. So smart thinking and congratulations. Let's get back to the show. Welcome back to TYT. Anna Kasparian and Emma Vigeland with you. Let's move right on to our next story because I think this is actually a pretty good example of what Democrats should be doing in their campaigning.
You know Ron DeSantis? Think again. In Congress, DeSantis voted 3 separate times to cut Social Security. That's right, 3 times over 3 years.
Ron DeSantis has not announced that he plans to run for president in 2024, but that didn't stop Donald Trump from releasing his first campaign ad against DeSantis. And I have to be honest with you, it's a pretty good one. Why is it a good one? Well, clearly Trump has gone back to his greatest hits, economic populism. Does he actually mean it? Probably not. Clearly, the only thing he seemed to care about in his first term was tax cuts for the rich to the tune of $2 trillion over 1 decade and deregulation. So is he really an economic populist? No. But it doesn't mean that he's not smart for going after Ron DeSantis for wanting to cut wildly popular social spending programs like Medicare and Social Security. Here's the entire ad in its entirety.
You know Ron DeSantis? Think again. In Congress, DeSantis voted 3 separate times to cut Social Security. That's right, 3 times over 3 years. Worse, DeSantis voted to cut Medicare 2 times. DeSantis even voted to raise the retirement age to 70. The more you learn about DeSantis, the more you see he doesn't share our values. He's just not ready to be president.
Emma, I am so curious to hear your thoughts on that ad because I personally think it was smart to go after DeSantis for his willingness to cut Medicare and Social Security. What are your thoughts?
I love it, obviously, for many reasons. One, because I at this point want Trump to win the primary for the sake of essentially the Democrats having the easiest path. Now, again, there's no way to know, right? But with him facing multiple investigations, being indicted, I have a feeling that he's not winning over a ton of swing or moderate voters with that. But look, we've seen this movie before. I understand it, but Biden's the incumbent. If he runs again, it is a tougher hill to climb for any of the Republicans challenging him, regardless of Biden's deficiencies in many ways. But I love this because Trump is putting it out there. I mean, he's saying plainly, frankly, what the Democrats are bad at saying. He keeps returning to this metaphor often of the wheelchair going off the cliff, pushing the wheelchair off the cliff, which is a metaphor I believe that the Democrats used like 10 years ago or something.
Yep.
And that is something that the Democrats should be deploying again. And yet Trump is the one doing it in the context of a personal beef that he has with DeSantis. But DeSantis's position on this is much more emblematic of the Republican Party than anything else. There's nothing more foundational to the Republican Party outside of maybe bigotry towards minority groups and towards women than the desire to cut Social Security and Medicare. When they say they want to raise them in retirement age, that's a cut. When they say they want to privatize it, that's a cut. When they say they want to move it into discretionary spending, that's a cut. They try all different avenues to do so. And Ron DeSantis has been very much towing the party line throughout his career on that front, but they never say it. They use those excuses that I mentioned. They never say it plainly because they know how unpopular it is. Trump is a crowd surfer. He did this well, and this is why he's returning to his roots because he loves being a WWE style trash talker in the primary, and that's actually the only time he's useful because he attacks other Republicans. He's returning to his roots, and he knows as a crowd surfer what is popular, especially among those voters. And these programs, even though these are Republican voters voting against their interests, he understands that the programs are popular, and going after DeSantis on this front is quite helpful for him in a primary race. And last thing I'll say before I kick it back to you, Anna, DeSantis going around to police unions and Club for Growth fundraisers as Trump went to East Palestine and is doing PR stunts, putting aside the arrest today. This guy does not have it. This is Trump understanding the base, DeSantis not understanding. And another way that he does not understand is that he still has not made a decision. He is sitting on the fence and leaving a vacuum for Trump to just attack. And the more that time goes on, the more Trump can build a narrative without him fighting back on it because he's too afraid. And that's what makes me think DeSantis actually might not choose to run because this is getting out of hand. He has allowed Trump to make way too much ground, gain way too much ground on this front.
I totally agree with you. I think there's a pretty good chance that DeSantis might just decide, maybe I sit this one out.
Yeah,
because he's certainly not doing well in the polls compared to Trump. And Trump is, he is a bull in a china shop. And sometimes it works to his advantage. Like, he is ruthless. Anyone he sees as an opponent, he will go after, and he will go after viciously. And that's how he's been toward Ron DeSantis as soon as Ron DeSantis experienced a little bit of a rise in the polling. Now, he has after Trump decided to actually go after him pretty explicitly, he went down in the polling. But that is a point that I've been trying to make, although I don't know if I'm articulating it in a way that people are understanding, because I'm not a fan of Trump, clearly. I'm not a fan of his. I don't want him to win the presidential election. I think that would be a disaster. However, you have to look at his strategies and analyze them objectively. The guy understands marketing, and he understands what voters want to hear. He might not, and I don't think he ever will, carry out the policies he claims he wants to carry out that his supporters seem to love. He didn't drain the swamp. In fact, he filled the swamp with more swamp monsters. I mean, the dude took advantage of corruption as a private billionaire, and then he took advantage of corruption as a sitting president. The guy is corrupt. He loves the swamp. He is a liar when he pretends to be some sort of economic populist. I will give him credit for not trying to go after Social Security and Medicare during his one term as president. However, that's it. And when it came to actions that he took as president, what is the one thing that he accomplished, Emma?
Yeah, well, I mean, he cut taxes. He cut taxes for the wealthy.
Exactly.
And that's exact. And then they use that pretext to then try to cut Social Security and Medicare. There's no money. There's no money in the trust fund. There's no money. They conflate the Social Security trust fund with Social Security, which is self-funding. And the trust fund, yes, there does need to be some action on that backstop for the trust fund. But the point is that it could very, very easily be funded and more if we raised the cap on income that is taxable for these programs for payroll. It's around 140K now. It has outpaced inflation, and that's why we're seeing the depletion of it. So the easy solution is to just raise the cap. I would eliminate it altogether, honestly.
Same, me too.
But raise the cap a lot more, and then no problem. But Republicans don't want to tell you that. And Trump doesn't actually care about the program. He just doesn't want to take the political hit, which is why he won't propose something like that. But like, I say this all the time because sometimes we'll have viewers write into the Majority Report and say, let's focus more on kitchen table economic issues. Let's not get bogged down in the culture war, which I do hear to an extent, right? But you also cannot leave a vacuum for the right to fill that, because they will fill it. When you leave a vacuum and you don't respond to hatred, if you don't respond to bigotry, you allow the right to make gains and just fill up that space, and then it's too late. And ironically, DeSantis is allowing Trump to do that to him right now in terms of a presidential race.
I gotta say, Trump is definitely, I mean, he sees DeSantis as a formidable opponent for sure. And remember, DeSantis hasn't even announced yet. And he's shelling out money. Trump is cheap as hell, but when it comes to winning elections, he will shell out the cash. According to Ad Impact Politics, MAGA Inc., so that's the PAC behind the ad, just placed reservations on national cable. So far, we've seen 1.2 million placed. Ads are set to begin airing tomorrow. So this was posted on March 30th. Today is April 4th. The Trump-backed PAC placed 16.7 million during the 2022 cycle. And a MAGA Inc. spokesperson, Alex Pfeiffer, said in a statement that Social Security and Medicare were two examples of issues on which President Trump is on the side of the American people and DeSantis is on the side of the DC establishment insiders. And by the way, he's right about that. So we fact check Trump and his cronies all the time, but on this issue, they're correct about Ron DeSantis' stint in Congress and what he wanted to champion, what he was supportive and not supportive of. In 2013, for instance, with Republicans controlling the House, DeSantis joined 103 Republicans on a failed resolution that called for raising the age to qualify for Medicare and Social Security to 70. According to a committee for a responsible federal budget analysis. The measure also supported a transition of Medicare, a program funded by the federal government, to a premium support system for which the federal government would designate a pot of money for each beneficiary to spend on a private insurance plan. That's a very long way of saying he's supportive, Ron DeSantis is, of privatizing Medicare. So not a popular position. Trump is right to attack Ron DeSantis on that for political gain. I think that it's going to work out well for him if he continues on, this track of tapping into his so-called roots in campaigning. Final word on this?
The point, and the point is just not to trust Trump on it though, because It's not just about individual people. Like Trump sees this as just a way to attack DeSantis. He doesn't have a principle on it, and it's about the coalitions that these candidates build. I try to say this all the time. It's not just about the individual personality. It's about which union is backing this candidate, which organization is backing this candidate, what are their bases of power. And so Trump could flip on this in a second. But for now, it's incredibly politically useful to tie Republicans to trying to cut Social Security and Medicare. And I hope Trump does more of it. This is the only time that I enjoy Trump, Republican primary Trump, where he's taking down other Republicans, because the Republican Party is a malevolent, malignant force in society, and it deserves to be getting all the heat that it gets, even if it's coming from an internal wrecker like Trump.
I do like it when Trump talks about windmills and water. That's
fun.
It's always fun.
Science.
Science.
You put the light inside the body.
Windmills.
Windmills.
All right. We're gonna go a little over, but I gotta cover this story with you. It's really important. It's the story I care about the most in the rundown today. So let's do it.
When you talk about corporate greed, the rail industry is a perfect manifestation of that, making huge profits, not giving their workers 1 day of guaranteed paid sick time. That is an outrage. That is an issue we're going to deal with.
Well, luckily, a Union Pacific employee who was fired by that very same rail company wants to deal with them and wants to deal with them now, and has done so by filing a new lawsuit against Union Pacific, which accuses the rail company of literally hiring private investigators to spy on their employees while they're out on medical leave. Now, the lawsuit alleges that the company fires workers if they're on leave, but they leave their homes as they're enjoying sick leave, I guess. The argument here is that the company doesn't trust their employees, so they hire spies to spy in on them to see if they're actually sick or in need of medical leave. Now, Nick Thompson, who is the lawyer who filed this lawsuit last month, notes that this is the first lawsuit like this in the state of Texas, and he is representing a specific employee who apparently had a very serious back injury that took him out for about 8 months. His name is Deron Rutledge. So after the back injury, Rutledge needed the 8 months off in order to recuperate and to get better. But because of the severity of the back injury, ever so often he will experience some flare-ups. And when the flare-ups happen, he's immobile. He has difficulty moving around. He has difficulty doing his job, so he needs to rest at home. Well, the lawsuit alleges that he ended up getting fired because Union Pacific hired private investigators to check in on him and see if he was really staying home. So Nick Thompson, the attorney representing Rutledge, says ultimately this has an effect Union Pacific wants. It scares people from using family medical leave or the Family Medical Leave Act. So the lawsuit again centers on Deron Rutledge. Union Pacific says it didn't do anything wrong, but let's give you the accusations in detail and you can judge for yourselves. In the Texas case, Deron Rutledge had worked various jobs at Union Pacific over 11 years leading up to working as a conductor before he was fired last year. According to his lawsuit, Rutledge had to take 8 months off to rehabilitate after the back injury in 2017. But after returning to the job, he would occasionally need to take additional time off when his back condition flared up. Seems like that makes a lot of sense. So what happened next? Well, according to the lawsuit, the railroad fired him after a private investigator saw Rutledge drive to the grocery store and gas station near his home in Fresno, Texas, and walk for short periods. And Rutledge said his bosses wouldn't listen when he tried to explain that even if he was well enough to run a few errands, he didn't feel up to helping operate a train. Now, keep in mind that Union Pacific, much like other rail companies, wanted to maximize their profits by cutting down on labor as much as humanly possible, okay? So at the very height of the rail industry, they had about 2 million rail workers. Today, that number is down to 700,000. And the calculation they made was, all right, we'll have less workers, but we'll make the trains much longer. So they're about 25% longer, which makes them less safe. Of course, they didn't ever upgrade their braking systems. They have not invested in making their trains safer, and they have far fewer employees to essentially follow the proper protocols to make sure that everything is being done safely. And since they have less employees, workers are expected to not take any time off if they get ill, if they get sick. And when it comes to conductors, they deal with a special kind of hell because they are not offered any sick leave. Okay, so let's get to those details. So Nick Thompson, again, the attorney, says the fact that you're on FMLA doesn't mean that you have to lay in bed all day. The fact that you can't work a 12-hour shift is different than whether you can do other things. And so far the conductors and all of the engineers who work in locomotives, representing more than half of the rail workers, don't have a single paid sick day off, okay? And that was what led to a possible strike. Congress intervened under the leadership of Biden and under the demands of the Biden administration to prevent the strike from happening and to essentially force a union contract on the rail workers who just wanted some time off to deal with things like family emergencies or illnesses. So this is what we're dealing with here. I love that the now former Union Pacific employee has decided to press charges. We'll see how it plays out. Curious what you think, Emma.
Well, I think this is one of the many reasons I love you, Anna. I really think this is an incredibly important story. So thank you for highlighting it on TYT, because I'm glad to comment on it. This is a massive problem. This is the problem with efficiency and lean labor models as likely advocated to these rail companies by consulting companies like the one that Pete Buttigieg used to work for, McKinsey, where they come in as mercenaries. They essentially say, here's where we can trim the fat. And the easiest way to trim the fat is labor. And we have some redundancy. We can really only hire and get by with this amount of people so long as they don't take any sick leave. And so someone watching this might say, well, doesn't it cost like a lot? Isn't it kind of ridiculous for the rail company to hire a private investigator to follow one worker around and make sure that they're not buying food or getting gas and living. They need to be dying on a sick bed for them to get sick leave. That's not really what's at issue here. They see that as the cost of doing business because it's pennies in comparison to their commitment to a lean labor model, as I mentioned earlier, where, as Anna laid out perfectly, like this is they try to cut down on costs for labor to an extent that the people at the top, their shareholders as well, because these companies don't have a fiduciary duty to their workers, they only have it to their shareholders. That's a problem of capitalism. They to maximize the profits at the top end, and that means employing the least amount of people possible with the worst conditions possible for them. When Mitt Romney came out and was speaking to Howard Schultz and said, none of these people have ever created a job in their life. These capitalists at the top of these companies, they're not job creators, they're job gatekeepers. Yes. They are making sure that they have the fewest amount of jobs possible to maximize the profits for their shareholders. And that's only exacerbated by the fact that these rail companies are regional monopolies that have no competition. So these conductors who work at railroads, if this is their line of work, they have nowhere to go unless they move thousands potentially of miles away from their home or change their line of work. And so that creates more leverage on these workers so that you can have a PI going after them. And this is why there are only two avenues forward. By the way, unbelievable that Biden was so afraid of any disruption that he broke the strike. But regardless, it's unconscionable. There are only two options going forward. We nationalize these railroads, which I am in favor of, and labor is as well, except that's more of a long-term goal. But in the short term, antitrust now. Break these regional monopolies up so they cannot do this to their workers.
I totally agree with you on that. And I think that's a good short-term goal and a good long-term goal as well. And I leave you all with this, just to buttress the great points that Emma made. I want to add some numbers to it, because if you're wondering, well, why don't they just hire more workers? Isn't it more costly to have this private investigator follow a worker around? Well, as Nick Thompson, the attorney, says, hiring more people is expensive. Mistreating the employees you have costs nothing. And it really is nothing in the grand scheme of things. Union Pacific, one of the major freight railroads that successfully fought off union demands for paid sick days for workers, reported another year of record earnings in 2022. The company's employee pay and benefits rose about $500 million or 12%. That sounds like a lot, to $4.6 billion. But that's far less than the $6.3 billion that Union Pacific spent repurchasing shares of stock. For the year, the company's net income rose to a record $7 billion, up about $500 million or 7% from the previous record profit it posted in 2021. While overall operating expenses for 2022 rose $2.5 billion, that was outweighed by revenue rising $3 billion to a record $24.9 billion for the year. They decided to fire a bunch of employees because they wanted to maximize profits. The proof is in the pudding, you see it in the numbers. And the people who suffer the most are local communities dealing with the hazardous waste being spilled into their environment, into their water, into the air that they breathe. The workers who can't take any time off, even if they're dealing with severe injuries. Ordinary people are the ones who suffer, right? Socialize the losses, privatize the gains, and that is what we see with these rail companies. So I agree with Emma 100% in what the short-term and long-term goals should be. The only problem is we need elected lawmakers who want to do the right thing and represent the best interests of ordinary people. We got to get money out of politics, and we got to ban members of Congress from investing in individual stocks. Emma, you've been amazing. We're super over time, so we got to go. But everyone go check out Emma's work over at the Majority Report. Any final words before we go, Emma?
No, thank you so much for having on. Always great to chat, and it's an auspicious day to be on TYT. So appreciate you guys always. Thanks so much.
All right, love you, Emma. We're gonna take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Windmills, wing.
You know what the progressive movement needs? It needs a little energy, a little pizzazz, maybe a little caffeine. Oh, coffee. But what if it was too strong coffee? Yes, new twostrongcoffee.com/TYT. Look, this helps progressive causes. It's also organic and fair trade, so you've got peace of mind that it was done right, and it happens to taste great. So check it out right now at twostrongcoffee.com/TYT.
That 300 million is a pretty good number, Well, that's the size of the US population. You know what our next target is? The size of the entire world.
We just crossed 5 billion views on YouTube.
I mean, imagine 10 years ago thinking one day.
We looked at you like, are you nuts?
Young Turks has just passed another milestone. 20 billion views.
Damn. All right, lots of comments. You guys are the best.
I'm gonna read a few comments from our members.
Mr. Methuselah says on YouTube, super chat, thanks for all the important work you do for TYT for the movement.
Do you know who had the first super chat when I got back from vacation? You won't be surprised to find out. Billy B. Taylor. What do you know? Billy says, rejoice, for Dragon Daddy has returned.
This question sent to us by Izzy Sanchez Jr. Is it me or is Meghan McCain talking as fast as Ben Shapiro? Is that the way the right tries to look smart and intellectual? Well, yes.
Michael Nathan writes it on Twitter. Did Anna choose Cenk's outfit today? I'm sure it wasn't Cenk himself. Man Bun Jenkins Skinny Jeans says, so now Anna has pointed out, okay, that's his handle.
T. Joyce, 1971, saying Donald Trump is good at pulling out of things, NAFTA, the Iran deal, NATO. It's just too bad Fred Trump didn't.
All right, let me do a little quick plug here. It's not even a plug, I'm bragging, okay? I'm bragging, watch me. We have a channel on YouTube, a whole channel devoted just to the Young Turks. It's badass, right? Wow, man.
I can see the void.
You guys are rock stars.
Unbelievable. Senator Sanders, welcome to Rebel Headquarters. Man, you guys are amazing. We gave you what you wanted. Okay. Speaking of shirts.
I have a surprise.
You reached a lot of people. You are the Young Turks. And we have spread that progressive message wide and far. Let's keep it going.
Here's what we do. We go beyond the headline. We are willing to engage in transparent conversations with those who do not think like me. We also make sure that you know what's happening not only nationally, but in your local area. Make sure you tune in to Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, Monday through Friday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time.
Cool news, shoptyt.com now has books. There's a whole bunch of books there. You're gonna be shocked to find out that they're largely progressive. Of course! Ryan Grimm's book, We've Got People, is there. It's a fantastic story from Jesse Jackson to Bernie Sanders to AOC that explains the progressive movement probably better than any book I've ever read. Speaking of awesome books, my dad's got a book out called The Original Young Turk, where he goes from the poorest olive farmer you ever met in your life to living the American dream.
TYT, Anna Kasparian and Francesca Fiorentini with you. Francesca, you're awesome. Thank you for coming back. It's great to have you.
Yeah, what a good Tuesday. I mean, for all the things, but Emma was just here.
Yeah.
Now we're together. It's all good.
So we spent a lot of time talking about the Trump indictment, but I'm curious what you think. Have you been following what's been going on today?
Obviously, yes. I'm loving the sort of the randos who are getting mics put in their face outside of the courtroom. It's just the best part of this. And like the sort of like flag pulling between anti and pro-Trumpers. Like as long as it stays at that, I'm cool. Once it starts getting more violent, then I get concerned.
I totally agree. I mean, you have the right to assemble, go ahead and protest, but please keep the peace. Don't let things devolve into violence. And so far, based on what we've seen, it's been okay, which is a giant relief given what we all saw on January 6th. So maybe Trump supporters got a little smarter and realized maybe rioting on behalf of a guy who will abandon us in a heartbeat is not the right way to go. So
they all caught charges. All the militias are like, let's sit this one out and regroup.
Totally. All right, well, we are not gonna do another story on Trump. We're actually gonna move on to, this story enraged me so much because I can't help but think about how much I relied on public libraries as a kid when my family couldn't afford a computer. But this is what Republicans are up to in Missouri. Let's talk about it. Conservative lawmakers in the great state of Missouri are currently squabbling over whether or not they want to defund the state's public library system. Because that should be a priority, right? Except it shouldn't be. This is incredibly stupid, and I'll explain why. So unsurprisingly, this nonsense infighting, yes, it's actual infighting within the GOP in Missouri, has its roots in the rights war on libraries in general. So let's give you the details on how this all came about. Last year, a state senator in Missouri by the name of Rick Bratton hijacked a bill that was originally meant to give more rights to survivors of sexual assaults. Now, Bratton included an amendment that prohibited educators from providing sexually explicit material to students, which the bill defines as visual depictions of sex, masturbation, or nudity, okay? Now, the bill was eventually signed into law. Between August when the bill was signed into law and November of last year, 300 books were banned from schools across the state, school libraries across the state. Now in February, the ACLU of Missouri, the Missouri Association of School Librarians, and the Missouri Library Association joined forces to file a lawsuit against the state of Missouri over these book bans. They argued that the bill violates the First Amendment. Now, furthermore, the bill included a provision that would exclude relevant works of art or science from being counted as sexually explicit. But the lawsuit argues that the book bans have been ignoring that particular provision. Now, in retaliation for the lawsuit, Missouri House Republicans want to axe the $4.5 million that is allocated to libraries in the state's budget. They've argued that they don't want to subsidize the lawsuit against the state, but keep in mind that the state is not funding that lawsuit. The ACLU is providing free legal aid. There's one big obstacle standing between the House Republicans and their goal of defunding the libraries, and you won't believe it. The obstacle is a Senate Republican. So before I get to the Senate Republican and give you the other details of this incredible story, Francesca, I want to bring you in because this is what Republicans are actually up to, right? This is what they want to do. They want to cut anything that actually improves people's lives, including libraries.
Yeah. They are trying to privatize whatever they can, right? It's gonna happen with our natural resources more and more. It's happened in other countries around, issues of like basic water rights, but that's gonna happen even more so. Like it's just anything they can. They're gonna put street signs and put those to the highest bidder. Like anything, children are gonna be named, Amazon.com, whatever, baby. Like you know what I mean? Like Pepsi baby. Like it doesn't matter. Like they just want. Republicans want to privatize everything. Everything should be up for grabs, and they've absolutely demonized libraries for so long. Why do you think libraries struggle to even stay open? Their hours are like, now we're from 11 to 3 to okay, we close at 1 on Wednesdays. Like it's not easy for public libraries, and as you mentioned, you yourself relied on them. They are huge resources for mostly students, but all people in a community. But I love the way that this got slipped in, and this is again sort of the whole conversation around, we are, the Republicans say that there's a sexualization of children by the mere mention of issues like sexual assault. This was a bill designed to help sexual assault survivors, and instead it wound up basically taking away the idea of sexual assault, even from fictional or non-fictional, discussions of it. Which, what do you think that does to survivors? What do you think that does to what is it, like 1 in 3 people who are survivors of sexual assault? It makes people feel like their experiences are erased, irrelevant. For example, Maya Angelou, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. There is a part about, molestation. That's obviously gone. That's woke, maybe. So I just love, the whole setup is trash, is what I'm trying to say.
I will say though, Republicans making reading cool is not what I expected, right? Because I just love the idea that you've got like a bunch of grade school kids that are like, oh, let me get that next book, bro. Like, you're just super excited about reading all this literary stuff. I mean, fact of the matter is, this is a problem that right-wing politicians have completely manufactured. Kids are not being groomed or sexualized through incredibly important books that honestly, a lot of the stuff that they try to ban, kids probably weren't even thinking about until now, right? Because nothing makes something cooler than the government trying to ban it. But I do want to go to a surprising twist to this story, because as I mentioned, it's the House Republicans in the state of Missouri trying to do this, but they ran into a brick wall when it came to a Senate Republican. So who is this guy? So it's Senator Lincoln Hoff. He's a Republican and the chief Senate budget writer. And he told the St. Louis Post-Dispatch about the canceled library funding, or this is what he said about it. There's no way that money is not going back into the budget. So basically saying, no, we're gonna fund the libraries, buzz off. Which, who is this guy? This is like the most shocking rebuttal of, or repudiation of fellow Republicans I've seen in a long time. After all, the Missouri state government is, by the way, constitutionally required to fund the state's government agencies and government programs like libraries. But that's not even the only issue that House and Senate Republicans are apparently sparring over. So the same senator, Senator Lincoln Hoff, and Senate President Caleb Roden earlier said they oppose Republican language in the House blueprint that would prohibit the state from spending tax dollars on diversity and inclusion initiatives. I'm gonna pause right there. How shocking is that, Francesca, considering this is the only thing Republicans seem to be talking about, that and persecuting transgender people?
I mean, it's mask off. I mean, this is what, I'm sorry to say his name, but it's what Trump hath wrought. I think it's even more extreme now. And so like, in the 90s and the 80s and 90s, you're like, yay, diversity matters, initiatives, all these things are like, it's window dressing on white supremacy, really. They're important programs for sure, but they're not structurally changing things, economically for people of color and poor folks in this country. But I salute those diversity initiatives. They don't even want that. They can't even do the song and dance around, a school is gonna celebrate Black History Month. I'm sorry, this is not tackling, the pillars of your white privilege are not shaking from a library doing a Black History Month reading group. Sorry, unless your white supremacy and privilege are that fragile, right? But they've got many, many hundreds of years. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I love about this, is that it's just racist. It's just them being like, it's just white fragility.
Yeah, and I love the point that you made about like the window dressing and how the diversity and inclusion stuff that they're whining about all the time actually does nothing to structurally change the systems that continue to oppress the same groups of people in this country for years, right? And decades. Now, Roden is, again, a Senate Republican in the state of Missouri. And he's against defunding certain programs or certain entities if they include diversity and inclusion. And so Roden's smart because he's like, this is not a good idea. He said the diversity and inclusion provisions that were offered up by the House Republicans were overly broad and would result in billions of dollars in cuts to hospitals, healthcare facilities, colleges and universities, and the Missouri House of Representatives itself. He's like, what are you guys doing? You guys are calling to defund yourselves and defund
we
hospitals.
Have a library.
Yeah, I mean, it is unbelievable. Except, it's nice to see, again, a Republican try to talk some sense into his fellow party mates, I guess, the House Republicans in this case. He's like, this is stupid, we shouldn't do it. But look, this is all important to cover because what I can't stand is the faux economic populism coming from Republican lawmakers, whether it's on a state level or a federal level. They may have co-opted certain language to make it appear as though they care about your economic stability, that they care about making life easier for you. But when push comes to shove, anything that makes your life even a little economically stable or anything that might provide some assistance to you, it's on the chopping block for them. And libraries are important for a number of different reasons. First of all, if you're a student, as I was, and your family can't afford some of the technology necessary to get your schoolwork done, like a computer, you can go to a library and use the computers there for free. You can check out books, obviously, for free, including books that are assigned to you in school. If you are an adult, a lot of libraries have job training programs to help you find gainful employment. There's all sorts of really, really important elements to the public library system that I think a lot of people forget about because maybe they didn't need to take advantage of it. Maybe they come from a more privileged, economically privileged family. But understand that they might seem like small things, but they pack a punch in a lot of people's lives, and defunding it is just not conducive to an economic populist message or policy.
Well, I know we have to move on, but like just zoom out a bit. This is what we say when we throw around the fascism word, right? People are like, what does that mean? What does that mean? It means getting rid of libraries. It means taking books away from the people. It means replacing them, privatizing them, having the DeVos family buy up little libraries and just filling them with a bunch of BS whitewashed history about how, Rush Limbaugh was the greatest man that ever lived. You know what I mean? Like Thomas Jefferson was forced into slavery by the slaves. Like this is the kind of, that is what we mean by fascism, because it is fascist uniform thinking that is not honest about history. It doesn't look at a plurality of sources. Hello, nothing but sources in the library. And it is only one line of thought that is valid. And that should make all of us incredibly frightened.
Absolutely. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about what Ron DeSantis and Florida Republicans are up to, especially at a time when we're dealing with ever increasing gun violence. And later in the show, we will lighten things up by dunking on Kid Rock for making a fool out of himself. That and more coming right up. Right, that fancy royalty-free Greek tune from DJ Bart Kyle. Is that like a Greek genre that you found?
I've been watching an older movie called The Third Man and with Orson Welles, and the soundtrack of that movie has that instrumentation coming from the zither. It kicks in with my zen, puts me in a nice even keel.
I love Greek music, so good choice, good choice. I like it. Let's go to our YouTube members. We've got Jason Davis, who just became a member. Thank you for your support. Saeed also became a member. Hieroglyphic, love that handle, became a member as well. Swedane Dragon gifted 5 memberships. Abby Brown gifted 10 memberships. You guys are amazing. JL became a member. John Olea also gifted a membership. Kate became a member, and Natalie Sowers also became a member. Thank you so much for your support. Night Eater in our YouTube member section is super excited today and just says, it's a good day. Tim Crocker says, killing Iran's general Soleimani was also a crime in international law. We should join the International Criminal Court. The United States will never join the International Criminal Court because the ICC has suggested going after the Israeli government over its treatment for Palestinians or toward Palestinians, and the US is not supportive of that. Christina Elsa Brown says, I love Emma and I think her new show is cool. That is Emma's sports show. You could also check that out by looking up Majority Report, and you'll find those videos as well. I'm obviously not into sports, so I don't watch that show, but I love Emma. Biohazard Dragon says, it's ridiculous that money buys amnesty. Legislators have a greater duty of care to the law and a greater responsibility to uphold the law. We just need them to stop jury rigging the laws. Any ideas? That is a difficult, complex question. I don't have the time to answer that or even ponder what the ideas could be. For now, though, let's move on to our super chats. We've got Parker who says, Trump actually did try to go after Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid when he was in office. His budget proposal every year included cuts to all 3. You know what? You're actually right about that. And I forgot, because usually the presidential budget proposal means nothing. I mean, it's just a virtue signal to, their base. I gotta look into that because I think you're right about it. So thank you for that correction. We've got Peter Hamby. Cooking, I read that already. Ali says, I thought you can't indict a sitting president. With that logic, shouldn't the clock stop while he's president and restart? That's a statute of limitations question. I agree with your take on that. Welcome back to the show, everyone. I gotta read this comment from History Speaks. I do disagree with it, but some of you might agree. So it's about Trump being prosecuted for the hush money payments and falsifying documents. Hate Trump, but this prosecutorial decision is deeply improper. Trump is being targeted for who he is, not what he did. The underlying conduct with Stormy Daniels is trivial and is being misused to elevate misdemeanor business misconduct into felonies. But it's not just business misconduct. It was falsifying documents to cover up campaign finance violations, and pretty significant ones, right? $130,000 to Stormy Daniels, another $30,000 to a doorman who was trying to sell a story about Trump allegedly having a love child. Obviously, this goes well beyond campaign finance limits in terms of the dollar amount. And then there's the cover-up component of it, which is pretty freaking serious. He committed the crime. People around him dealt with the consequences of that, including Michael Cohen, who went to prison for it. I hear what you're saying in terms of like, this is one of the weaker, more trivial investigations into Trump. I agree with you on that point, but he did break the law. And I mean,
but Anna, I think the commenter misunderstands, because I think it's no one is prosecuting him over sleeping with a porn star while his wife was pregnant or like had just given birth. Like that is not to do. It's about the hush money and then lying or falsifying the records to cover up the hush money. Those two things, all while he is running for president.
And look, there is precedent for, not presidents, of course, but other politicians who have been imprisoned for campaign finance violations without even doing the cover up, right? Just violating campaign finance laws. So we'll see how it plays out. I just don't think anyone should be above the law. If he broke the law, he should suffer the consequences. I don't think he's gonna spend a single day behind bars over this. Who knows what the future holds when it comes to other investigations and possible criminal prosecution. But I did appreciate your comment and your perspective, so I wanted to read that and just share a different point of view with the audience. With that said though, why don't we move on to the state of Florida and the interesting legislation that's making its way through the state legislature, because seems to be a little bit of a conflict here when it comes to wanting to protect life. Governor Ron DeSantis in Florida has signed a new law allowing for permitless concealed carry of guns in the state of Florida. The closed door event where he of course signed this into law included only NRA and pro-gun lobbyists in the room. Now, meanwhile, Florida Republicans are working on passing legislation that would ban abortion past 6 weeks because they allegedly want to protect life. Doesn't seem to make a lot of sense when you take a step back and look at the bigger picture here. We'll get to the anti-abortion legislation in just a moment, but why don't we start off with the permitless concealed carry law. The new law will allow anyone who can legally own a gun in Florida, which is basically everyone, to carry one without a permit. It means training and a background check will not be required to carry concealed guns in public. It takes effect July 1st. My question in response to this is simple. Why? Why? Like, why is it so difficult? It's not difficult to get a permit. It's not. So why this weird, gratuitous deregulation of already laxed gun laws in Florida? Now, again, no license, no training, no background check needed. You just need to be over the age of 21. Nearly 3 million Floridians have a concealed weapons permit. While a background check and 3-day waiting period will still be required to purchase a gun from a licensed dealer, they are not required for private transactions or exchanges of weapons. So that is the loophole that we oftentimes refer to when we want to close federal background check loopholes, right? If you're buying from a private seller, you don't have to deal with certain regulations, which is pretty terrible and allows for individuals who have no business carrying weapons, getting their hands on the weapons that they should not be in possession of. We've got more details on this. Before we get to it though, Francesca, we're dealing with endless mass shootings, and Ron DeSantis and the Florida legislature is just like, let's deregulate further.
Let's make it more unsafe to just live your life. The Stop Woke Act. History is criminalized, but guns are all good. I would argue that guns have been a problem throughout our history, but hey, that's just me. Recent history would prove that. My question is this, Anna. You said why? I think that's a great question. I think if they want to build a case for guns, all right, let's pretend we don't remember the recent mass shootings in, let's say, Parkland, dozens of students killed. Let's not remember, but give me your PR pitch. All the times that guns have saved someone's life, all the people who came into the rescue, what did they save you from? Was someone trying to steal your phone and you murdered them? What else? Are you gonna hold up George Zimmerman, who bravely killed Trayvon Martin that wasn't with, or was with a gun? Like these are the people, this is what I'm telling you. Why, when have guns saved your life? Straight up, I'm seriously asking, because we don't see those stories ever. Oh, but they must exist. They don't. That's what I'm arguing. They don't exist, and they don't even exist when the cops are in for the rescue. We've seen that a million times on the TYT network and on this show as well. How many times do cops make it worse, kill unarmed people? They're armed to the teeth, they have tons of training. And they're gonna be even less safe now with this law. So please tell me, show me all the heroic man saves small child with gun. I don't see those stories because they don't exist.
The thing that's just frustrating to me is why is it so difficult to, I mean, they had a system in place to get the permit if you want to conceal carry in Florida, and no one was complaining about it. This just came out of nowhere, right? Because this is all Republican lawmakers have, right? It's always stuff like this. Anything to make it appear as though they're working real hard for your best interest, when in reality, really, we want to get rid of the training requirements, the permit requirements for concealed carry in public. But why? It's not difficult to obtain a gun in Florida. I know people who have like an entire freaking arsenal, a room dedicated to guns. The permit process was not laborious, it was not difficult, it was not challenging. No one asked for this. In fact, why don't we get to some details on what this actually means and how this could really increase gun violence in Florida. There is some data to get to. So first of all, Ron DeSantis in a statement about this legislation said, you don't need a permission slip from the government to be able to exercise your constitutional rights. Okay. Yeah, we're talking about something that can kill others, and a permit is not some difficult thing to undergo or to obtain in order to buy a weapon of death. Okay, but okay, fine. That's his point of view. Former Democratic Representative Debbie McCarcel Powell, I should say, pointed out this concerning fact. Between 2021 and 2022, more than 7,000 Florida residents had a disqualified history. They were denied to carry a concealed weapon, but now the Florida legislature wants to strip away these important provisions. So since they had that permit process in place, over a 1-year period, 7,000 Florida residents did not qualify for the gun purchase, or at least carrying the gun, a concealed weapon publicly, okay? So now those 7,000 people, if they want to buy a gun now and do the concealed carry, they can do it. There's nothing stopping them, right? The safeguards that were in place before are now gone. So that's a long way of just saying people are gonna die as a result of more people who shouldn't have possession of weapons easily obtaining the weapons.
Because what do the background checks see? They see, oh, you have a history of domestic violence. Oh, you know, the cops were called in this instance. Oh, you like went off at somebody, in a store and they called the cops and there was an altercation. Like these are all the things that background checks do. And again, look, if you're a Second Amendment, diehard, okay, well regulated, well regulated. I mean, let's put militia aside. I don't know what you do in your private time, but like, I don't see any militias, really. Are you openly, okay, let's put that aside, well regulated. None of this is well regulated. And Anna, you're right in terms of it's easy to get a gun in Florida. Honestly, it's easy to get a gun even in California.
Yeah.
We talked about the gun show loophole. You just go to a gun show. I remember I went to a gun show, came out, and I hear these two dudes talking, and they like loved it because they were like, they thought it was cool and they liked it. One of them says to the other, God, I can't believe you can just buy that.
Yeah. Yeah.
These are people who like guns. And they were like, I don't, wow, crazy.
Yeah, no, it's by the way, it's super easy to purchase a gun in California through the legal channels without having to take advantage of a gun show loophole. It's not difficult.
True.
So I don't understand any of this. Now, simultaneously, while the Florida state legislature is passing laxed or deregulation for their already laxed gun laws, they're also pretending like they care about human lives, which is why they're controlling the bodies of women in their state they're attempting to outlaw abortion past 6 weeks. A lot of women don't even know they're pregnant at 6 weeks, okay? I mean, it's most women. Let's just keep it real, right? Because it's just too early to know. So most women,
a cycle and a half? Are you kidding me?
This is an effective ban.
Nothing.
We know this. This is an effective, all-out, universal ban of abortion in the state of Florida, similar to what they did in the state of Texas. And so the bill, SB 300, would ban most abortions after 6 weeks of pregnancy, with exceptions for women facing life-threatening harm during pregnancy, and exemptions of up to 15 weeks for victims of rape, incest, and human trafficking. None of those exceptions really matter. If the woman is experiencing health issues, life-threatening health issues, that does matter, right? But victims of rape, incest, and human trafficking, they would have to come forward to the authorities. They would have to have their case adjudicated. I mean, no one's gonna do that. So the exceptions are just a weird cover for an incredibly cruel policy that just seeks to punish and control the lives and bodies of women. That is what this is really about. Because if they were genuinely concerned about human lives, Francesca, they wouldn't do away with the permit process to obtain lethal weapons in that same state.
Yeah, the only way to terminate a pregnancy in Florida is to give the zygote a gun and have it shoot its way out. That's, I mean, really, like, too bad it can't hold it. Man, they gotta make smaller little guns. That'll be cute. Isn't that adorable?
Don't give them ideas.
You and I haven't, yeah, right. They don't have fingers, that's the thing. You and I haven't spoken, you obviously went viral for your very righteous and wonderful rant about, religious fundamentalism in this country. And I would argue, and I think you just said, we've completely jumped the shark on that. Like, it's not about your God, your religion. It's not about that. It is about control. Yep. It is about, now if that has to do, if it's convenient for your own particular take on your own particular religion, or in Christianity in this case, cool. But it is just about control. And it is sick and twisted, and you're totally right. There's no pause button on the uterus while a judge is adjudicating your rape trial. You don't be like, oh, hey, little zygote, could you stop? Because I'm gonna have this unwanted pregnancy just as soon as this judge can convict my rapist. A year and a half later, like, come on.
Yeah. Well, the update on that bill is, the measure was approved 26-13, but it must pass the state House before heading to Governor Ron DeSantis's desk to be signed. So while the laxed gun law did in fact pass and has been signed by Ron DeSantis, this anti-abortion bill still needs to pass the state House. But with the supermajority that Republicans enjoy in the state of Texas, I have no doubt that this is going to get through. Anyway, we got to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll make fun of Kid Rock. Mikey 3343 has an answer for you, Francesca, over a question that you asked in the last story. Remember the Good Samaritan who took out an active shooter and then was killed by police in Colorado in 2021?
I do.
Yeah.
We covered that story.
It's a really good point because look, I'm sure there are examples. You could point to anecdotal evidence of people using guns to either protect themselves or to protect the lives of others. But when it comes to open carry or concealed carry or using a gun to defend others in, like, let's say a mass shooting incident, when the cops show up, they don't know that you're the good guy with the gun. And you very well may be shot and killed by the cops once they arrive on the scene. I mean, that is terrifying. So, but like the chaos, I feel like is not the bug, it's the feature. Because more gun violence leads to more paranoia, more fear, and more gun purchases. That's why you see gun purchases spike after these big mass shootings that grab national attention. And I say national attention because there's mass shootings happening all the time that don't get any coverage at all. They're just so common now. But every once in a while, a mass shooting breaks through, it gets a lot of national attention, and you'll see the gun sales spike. It's just, the whole thing is gross. And I'm not even against guns. Like, I've talked about that openly, but I am in favor of common sense gun legislation. The idea of getting rid of permits is ridiculous to me. Matt Gates on a white Ford Bronco says, this case shouldn't be referred to as paying off a porn star, but rather business fraud and campaign finance violations. I agree with you on that. If Trump had paid from his personal account, there would not be a case. What a putz. Yeah, you know what? That is so true. Like, Trump being as cheap as he is actually really did, like, he did himself dirty here, because if he just paid the hush money payments out of his own pocket, there would be no issue here. Actually,
right. He's just trying to write it off as a business expense. It's a campaign expense.
Actually, I do wonder though, because it can still be considered a campaign contribution because it's hush money payments to help Trump with his chances of winning the 2016 presidential election, right? So I don't know, but I don't know if he would have been prosecuted for that. So interesting point, and I love how cheap Trump is. All right, JL donated a super chat. Thank you for that. Undecided says, I'm glad I don't work in Lower Manhattan anymore. Michael Norish says, I've seen it, I've said it once, I'll say it again. 1 million seconds is 12 days, 1 billion is 31 years. How much money do these people need? It's just a genital measuring contest for the super rich. That's really what this is.
They can't even spend it all in a lifetime.
It's just so unnecessary and gross, but it's all about competing with the upper echelons of wealth. That's all they care about. It's an ego thing. Jason Ray says, Anna, check out the song Nina Nana by Pink Martini. Song is in Italian. Listen and make pasta with your man. I like to cook by myself, I gotta be honest with you. It's all kinds of mood, but I'll take a look at that. Thank you, Jason. A comment real quick from Mark Keister. I'm behind as usual, and I'm so happy that you enjoy the garlic spaghetti. I do. I hope you received my critical feedback regarding the Marjorie Greene interview and understand that it is in good faith. Mark, I do understand it's in good faith. I understand we disagree. That is totally fine. I just think that Marjorie Greene is already normalized through endless appearances on Fox News, which is the most watched cable news channel. So I don't agree with the anti-platforming argument. And also, I don't know, this is what I expected from Leslie Stahl. I did not expect her to be like punching Marjorie Greene in the face during that interview. But I think if you watch the entirety of the interview, you'll see some pretty good moments by Stahl and not so good moments by Stahl. I felt that it was mixed, so that's just my perspective. Everyone check out the full 60 Minutes interview with Marjorie Greene to see what I'm talking about. All right, with that said, let's get to the next story.
I kept hearing about this thing called March Madness, and I thought we were all just having a hectic month, but it turns out it has something to do with sports. And I'm not sure exactly which sport, but either way, it's a cause to celebrate. This month, I celebrated my day 365 of womanhood, and Bud Light sent me possibly the best gift ever, a can with my face on it.
Dylan Mulvaney was celebrating the fact that Bud Light had sent a special beer can over to her. Of course, she's a TikTok star who has been basically documenting her transition. Now, of course, that simple video led to a little bit of a hissy fit on the right. And I gotta say, some portions of that tantrum are amusing to watch, and we're gonna see what I'm talking about in just a moment. Now, a little more context into what Budweiser was doing here. So Mulvaney, who has about 11 million followers on TikTok, recently celebrated the 1-year anniversary of her Days of Womanhood series, in which she documents the everyday highs and lows of transitioning, okay? That's why Bud Light sent her that special can of beer. Now let's get to the crazy reactions, starting with, I think, the most unhinged. Let's watch.
Grandpa's feeling a little frisky today. Let me say something to all you and be as clear and concise as possible. Bud Light, and Anheuser-Busch. Have a terrific day.
But who paid for that beer, Kid Rock? Did you pay for that beer? You bought the beer just to shoot the beer? Okay. I mean, by the way, Dylan Mulvaney's 26 years old. Like, why are they so up in arms about this? Who cares?
I mean, look, I argued before guns don't do, they don't do anything. They haven't saved lives. But look at that, he bravely saved us from the transgenders. The performativeness it's like whenever Republicans have a problem, they just shoot it. Just shoot it. You know what I mean? You don't like climate change? Shoot it. And it seems funny to me, but then obviously this is an automatic weapon. I don't know which one. I'm gonna get added if I say the wrong one, right? Because you don't even know. I don't care, but it looks scary and it kind of looks like a mass shooter weapon. So I might say an AR-15. The point is it's a stand-in for her. It's a stand-in for Dylan Mulvaney. Yeah. I know he's trying to go after Bud Light, but you know what that is? In this moment of massive anti-trans laws and anti-gender affirming care laws passed throughout this country, that's just violence against trans people. And honestly, this is the whole thing with oh, you went woke. No. Bud Light wants to sell more Bud Light. And I'm sorry if your commercials from the 90s.
Thank you.
Yeah, your commercials with two blonde twins being like, oh yeah, tap the Rockies. I don't know if that was Coors, I don't care. But all of your commercials, they ain't hitting. So you gotta go to the TikTok stars. You gotta pay them some money and they're gonna get out to the 10 million, 11 million followers that she has.
No, 100%, 100%. How do they not understand this? By the way, for everyone, doesn't matter what your political leanings are, okay? Stop getting upset or giving credit to corporations that only do things to maximize profits or to market themselves to, in this case, 11 million people who follow this popular TikToker. That's all this is about, okay? Bud Light is not taking a strong stance like, ooh, so risky, so courageous. No, Bud Light is looking out for their profits. They're looking for different ways to market. And honestly, when you think about the demo for Bud Light, which is, I think, young people drink Bud Light because Bud Light is awful. It tastes like garbage.
Yeah, it's a step up from urine.
Yeah. A little, maybe, I don't know. We might want to do a taste test. Let's do some focus groups to see if that's the case. But no, I mean,
don't put that on the internet, Anna. We don't put that out there.
But my point is, this is beer pong beer, right? This is what college students are drinking. So it's actually a really smart marketing move from Bud Light, especially, I don't know for sure, but I would venture to say that Dylan Mulvaney's audience is young. And so it's smart to market this way. That's all this is. But yeah, you're right.
They're trying to stick it to White Claw. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, we need an angle. Get Dylan Mulvaney. Put her face on a can. That's it's perfect. It's easy.
And it's a special can that they sent specifically to her, right? So if you're a Bud Light connoisseur and you're also a transphobe, don't worry. You're not gonna have to drink out of a can of beer that has her face on it. We do have some more unhinged reactions. I'm just gonna go to some of the tweets. I agree with half of the comment here, although I don't know if we could even say the first word, so I'm just gonna say it's a synonym for pee that was tweeted here. Pea water masquerading as beer hires man masquerading as woman. I don't agree with the second half of that, but Bud Light does taste like pee. So anyway, but no, I mean, who cares? Who cares? Who cares? Why?
He thinks he's so clever. Oh, he's so clever. Someone fed him that, and then someone DM'd him that joke, and then he tweeted it. No, it's great.
Tim Pool with this clever one. Bud Light is college party beer. Almost no one goes out to a bar to chill and orders Bud Light. It's trash that young people drink to get wasted.
And where's the dunk?
You know what? You know what? I respect that. There was no dunk. It was just a factual tweet. It might be one of Tim Pool's only factual tweets. So you're right about that. Anyway, that does it for the show. We're out of time. Francesca, you're wonderful. Everyone check out the Bituation Room. Bonus episode is next.
Indisputable has been named the fastest growing news TV show in the United States of America, compared to all shows on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and roughly 30 others. What do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable. Donald Trump radicalized citizens. He's the chief terrorist. Republicans still want you to think that critical race theory is the greatest evil that can happen in K through 12 education. It's not even taught. I guarantee you this, David. If he would have taken a knee during the national anthem to bring awareness to the need for more money for cancer research in America, he would not have had that response. It was the fact that he took a knee for black folk and brown folk. You rather pick the voters because you're scared of the voters picking the politicians. It frightens you. But we coming. When you are in a privileged position, equality looks like oppression to you. The Karenicity runs deep in this one. We provide a mirror for reflection and a mirror for correction.
So what if I have 35? Don't hit me. Don't touch me. Don't touch me.
So let's put up the graphic of this Karen in peak performance. Boom. They want anarchy so they can start creating their own rules.
Can you share with me some examples?
When they were running around during the terrorist attack on January 6th saying, hang Mike Pence. So those are the people I'm talking about. That's a problem, correct? You work for Mike Pence, stand up for the guy. Do not allow the ideology of politics to evaporate the humanity that still exists inside of you. They don't stop, I don't stop. Racism won't stop, I won't stop. Systemic bias won't stop, so I won't stop. People still need health care, so I won't stop. People still need criminal justice systems reformed in this country, so I won't stop. And you won't stop either.
Universal health care, raising the minimum wage, doing something about climate change and gun violence and an unjust justice system that locks up black and brown folks. We're not going for the okie doke no more.
I think Nina Turner is the leader of the progressive movement right now.
It is absolutely a sin and a shame to be in the 21st century in America and having people who are elected to office not only try to separate us, but also use public policy to make it harder to vote.
The questions that we get asked is how you gonna pay for it? I say, oh, we gonna pay for it the same way we pay for the tax cuts. That's how we gonna pay for it. We're gonna pay for it in the same way that we give military industrial complex contractors. That's how we gonna pay for it.
If standing up for a universal health care or Medicare for all is wrong, Jink, I don't want to be right. If believing that working people deserve to have paid family and medical leave is wrong, I don't want to be right. If wanting everyday people of this nation to live a good life is wrong, then I don't want to be right.
We are being tested whether we have courage enough, conviction enough, people power enough to stand up and do what is right for ourselves and generations yet unborn.
I'm Nina Turner, and I am unbought and unbossed.
When I started, TYT had already been around for 5 years. It was very possible that it was just gonna crumble and fall apart.
Long before I started working here, I listened to years of TYT.
I came in as a college kid at SC. I was trying to get into broadcast.
I was in a family that thought we were liberal Republicans.
I wish I could sit down with people and give them the opportunity to get to know me on a deeper level.
We moved generations. Am I proud of that? Hell yeah, I am.
Documents.
To what is usually a members only bonus episode, but on this special occasion, we have opened it up to the public.
Come one, come all.
because Trump will be holding a press conference today to talk about his arraignment.
More like a depressed conference, am I right?
Zinger!
Because of his legal troubles.
John Idarola was kind enough to come back to work to help me do this coverage.
How's it going?
There will be a members only bonus section later where we'll just do our analysis. So you can become a member by going to tyt.com/join, or if you're watching us on YouTube, just click on that join button. You can become a member that way as well. So John, I have not talked to you at all about the news of today, the arraignment itself.
Or about anything. You never text, you never call.
I mean, I could if you want me to.
Yeah, you were busy arguably doing a show. Yes, so I don't know, maybe I feel probably different than you might think, or that most people might think. And I don't mean about like where I think this is gonna go. I think everybody on the network has been very clear about their actual expectations or hopes, or combine those two things into one thing. More about the process where, I don't know. I'm not as excited as I would want to be about the process. That does not mean that I don't have room for excitement. His speech tonight, I think, the chaos that it'll generate, I'm down for that.
Yeah.
But the legal process, so we got the indictment, and then they said when the next court date is. Did you see that?
Oh, I didn't know. When is the next court date?
I think it's December 5th.
Yeah.
I'm probably not even gonna be alive come December 5th, and I'm supposed to invest my spirit in that.
Those wheels of justice, they just keep on spinning slowly.
It's
very slowly.
It's very normal, but come on, seriously?
Yeah, that's so weird. I wonder why it takes that long.
Just a busy court system, I don't know.
Well, delaying is a tactic by the defense. So
Yeah.
I wonder if the defense played a role in that.
I haven't seen any indication that it's on them yet. They might, well, they will try to get that pushed back. They were trying to get it moved to Staten Island and everything.
Right,
so they're gonna do all sorts of stuff. For now, it just seems like, yeah, these sorts of things take literally years. So, you know, it's still gonna be during, and then, it's like December 5th, and I think the actual beginning of the trial process, I think, is the beginning of January, which is like go time in the Republican primary.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll work out real well. So I'm looking forward to that. I just, anyway, we'll see how it plays out. But I'm more curious. Look, like I've said before, I'm gonna repeat it again. Out of all of the investigations that Trump is facing, he, in my opinion, based on the evidence that we've seen, the evidence that we have, he broke the law. So I don't want to minimize that. But what he did in stealing top secret and classified documents and taking it home with him to Mar-a-Lago, I think that's more serious. The efforts to essentially commit fraud in the 2020 election, right? He told election officials in Georgia to find him enough votes so he wins the state. Like just make up votes. I mean, the guy loves fraud.
There was also a coup. It's easy to forget that, but there was a coup attempt too.
An attempt, yes, yeah.
Look, I am all for beginning a process of normalizing holding powerful people accountable for the things that they do.
1000%.
I would have ordered it in a different way. I don't know, maybe this is like the legal amuse-bouche, and Fulton County drops in a couple weeks, you know, once our palate has been prepared fully. Maybe it's better, maybe doing the little one first and then hitting us with January 6th and Fulton County and the rape trial that he has. Isn't it weird that you can forget about the alleged rape trial of a former president?
Yes, E. Jean Carroll, right?
Yes, exactly.
Maybe that's a civil suit, by the way.
Exactly, yes. So I don't know, maybe ordering it this way allows people to continue to be like, oh dear God, this is even worse. Whereas if you led with the first one and then you came out with the hush money, be like, whatever. I don't know, maybe that's strategic. They're not coordinating, it's not like that, but.
Yeah, so I don't know, we'll see how it all plays out. But the one thing that resonated with me was when you said, like, I thought I would be more excited. And I'm right there with you. I mean, I'm not really excited. I just think it's important to hold everyone accountable regardless of what their status is in society, right? That there shouldn't be a two-tier justice system. So I feel like this is the right thing to do. But the reason why we're probably not like, woo, like super excited and like giddy about it is I don't know, man. Because look, at the end of the day, it doesn't actually improve anyone's life, right? So like, I get giddy when there's actual policy that's gonna lead to material benefits for ordinary people.
Yeah.
And like with this, it feels good because Trump's a bad guy, should face some consequences for what he does. But if you take a step back, and I ask Republicans to think about it this way as well. When you're super excited and you're like vociferously supporting your preferred Republican candidates because of how vicious and cruel they are to various groups of people, whether it be transgender people, whether it be immigrants, like, does it really improve your life? Are they really representing your best interests, or are you just getting your rocks off by watching your preferred politicians be ridiculously cruel to others?
Yeah.
Like, my point is, you should have higher standards, you know, for politicians in general, and that goes for both sides.
Yeah, and I wouldn't like try to convince you that like, no, you shouldn't draw any pleasure from people you've been misled, I would say generally, to believe are terrible, are suffering in some way, I guess. We like joking about Dark Brandon occasionally, but imagine if that was the only thing that we cared about. Imagine the state of our show, of us. It's like, oh no, he did a Dark Brandon and now I'm good. I don't need to retire ever or have health care. I'm all good, baby. That would be super weird. And that is what they're actually doing. They want a baseball bat next to Alvin Bragg's head and they're good.
Yeah, I mean, some people just see, and look, I also understand it, right? Because when politicians in the political system stops representing the best interests of the electorate, and it's been that way for so long, politics just devolves into a reality show, cults of personality, and a blood sport. And so to some extent, I think voters have been conditioned to think this is all politics is. It's owning the other side. And if you really ask yourselves, as I've asked myself today, does it feel really good to just own the other side? I mean, sure, temporarily, but it's not even about owning the other side. For me, it's just, I want justice. I want him to be held accountable the same way anyone else would if they committed the same crimes.
Yeah, and even, I understand that I've sort of spun off on this tangent because this is something that I think bothers both of us and has for a very long time. To the extent that even I have a desire to own the other side, like, I think you can sort of compare people on, if you were to start at the very top of the other side, how far down do you still draw pleasure from the owning of them? I do for the people at the top. Trump gets owned or whatever, I'm happy. Governors, senators, representatives, some at least, perfectly happy. But for some on the right, it's like second grade teacher that lives 2,000 miles from them that they've never met. I want that person to suffer.
I know.
I get nothing from a random conservative suffering. I wouldn't want it at all.
Same, I agree.
I think it's really weird to derive your strength and your vigor from that sort of thing.
Yeah, I don't really enjoy watching ordinary people suffer in any way, even if I disagree with them politically. So John's a good dude, man. John's a good dude.
I try.
And look, I was gonna try really hard to not mention how good your haircut looks, but I can't help it. Your haircut looks so good.
Thank you. So the reason I try to performatively act like a good guy is just to generate these sorts of compliments. Because she wasn't gonna do it until I was a nice guy.
No, that is a great haircut.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
I'm gonna say you didn't go to Cenk's favorite fancy hair salon known as Supercuts.
Supercuts? No, this time I did not. Have I been to a Supercuts that's close to our office 20 times? Yes. But no, I went to a slightly nicer place.
Yeah.
I looked into a couple of others and I looked at their prices and what's going on with haircutters recently?
Oh my God, don't even get me started.
$60 for a haircut? What am I, Pete Buttigieg?
No,
Back off.
You're not allowed to complain about $60. I am a woman.
I have this much hair.
You guys want to know how much I get my hair done? Like when the works, okay? Not just the roots.
So hair, cut, color.
Cut, color, highlights, blow dry.
$225.
Oh, John, you are very
I added the
sweet.
25 based on your facial expression.
Okay, so the woman I go to is actually a childhood friend. I grew up with her. She lived across the street from me. I love her. And for the longest time, she would give me a massive discount. Well, the pandemic was obviously not good for hairstylists, people who work in salons, and
anyone.
So basically anyone, yeah. A lot of people like lost their jobs or had to shut down their businesses. And so I told her, I was like, stop giving me the discount. I wanna pay full price because I wanna help, like I can do it, don't worry about it. It's $450.
Oh
yeah,
God.
Yeah. But you know what? She does a great job, and I'm happy to pay the full price. That is what she charges. She is incredible, amazing.
I mean, your hair looks great.
Believe me, I know.
Oh geez.
By the way, I do that.
All of this now.
I do that twice a year. In between, I just do my roots, which doesn't end up looking as good, but I'll get by.
Your hair is solid. You have nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
But anyway, so do we have any kind of timeline for when he's supposed to get him out? I imagine there's like a big crowd outside of Mar-a-Lago.
So Trump was scheduled to do his press conference at 5:15 Pacific time, 8:15 Eastern time. It is not surprising to me that it is now that time and the press conference hasn't started. I think he'll probably be a little late, but we're gonna stick by this and immediately as soon as he starts his speech, we'll show you what he has to say and then we'll give you some analysis on it. Go ahead.
Okay, I mean, if there are more updates, then definitely. But at the very least, I'm kind of curious what you think he's gonna use this opportunity for.
Oh, it's gonna be lunacy. Like he's gonna complain. He's gonna talk about how he's such a victim. How many times is he gonna say witch hunt?
Oh my God, I mean.
Should we drink? Do we have whiskey?
Well, wait,
no, I'm kidding.
Where are we going with this?
Drink.
I wish we could have a counter. I mean, I'm gonna say at least 10.
You know what? Why don't we do healthy drinking? So every time he says witch hunt, we take a sip of water. Hydration.
You've become so much more fun over the years. You wild one, calm down. There are kids watching. But anyway, sure. I didn't bring my water. Anyway,
no, I was kidding. We're not gonna do the hydration thing.
I'm actually feeling a little bit dehydrated. I should probably. I'm still hungover from WrestleMania. Anyway.
Oh, I want to ask you about that.
But we'll talk about it. There's the president being indicted as we speak. So yeah, I think look at least 10 times. So for his speech, my expectations, like him coming out and whining and presenting himself as a victim and all of that, that's nothing. Like that doesn't even register for me on the lunacy scale. I am just waiting to see how much he is going to push the judge to put a gag order on him.
I love that you brought up the judge. Dude.
Yeah.
Dude. Okay, so a little bit of context. If he is convicted of these charges, remember 34 counts of felony falsifying documents. If he is convicted on all charges, he could serve a maximum of 4 years in prison. Now it is
for each charge.
For each charge, okay.
Yes.
But it's discretionary, meaning the judge it's not mandatory, meaning the judge gets to decide how much time he spends in prison. But homeboy can't help himself, and he's been going after the judge viciously. And the judge is a professional, so like, why don't we talk about that? I want to get into some of the details, including some of the ridiculous attacks on the judge. So, all right, so Donald Trump has been arraigned on 34 counts of felony falsifying documents. And this is of course the case having to do with the hush money payments that were paid to Stormy Daniels in the lead up to the 2016 election. Now the reason why it's considered a felony is because he is being accused of falsifying the documents in order to cover up another crime, and the other crime has to do with campaign finance violations, because the money that was paid to Stormy Daniels is considered campaign finance, campaign financing, right? Money to
help. It could be considered that,
It could be considered that because it was meant to, obviously it's hush money, so prevent her from talking about the affair that they had, which could have hurt Trump's chances in the 2016 election.
Yeah.
So they tried to suppress that along with other unsavory things that Trump had done, right? We'll learn more and more about that as this case unravels. With that said though, the judge overseeing this case has already been attacked pretty viciously by Donald Trump. So it's worth knowing who the judge is and what this could mean for Trump. Now, the judge presiding over the trial is Judge Juan Merchan, who has already been attacked pretty viciously by Donald Trump. I'm gonna give you a few examples. In a Truth Social post on March 31st, Trump wrote this: "The judge assigned to my witch hunt case," but he is assigned to your case.
What does that mean?
He is assigned. I don't know why that's in quotation marks, but okay. "The judge assigned to my witch hunt case, a case that has never been charged before, hates me." His name is Juan Manuel Marchand, who was handpicked by Bragg and the prosecutors, and is the same person who railroaded my 75-year-old former CFO, Alan Weisselberg, to take a plea deal, pled guilty, even if you are not, 90 days, fight us in court, 10 years life. Basically, he took a plea deal because if he went to trial and was found guilty, he could have spent 10 years in prison.
And as we know, Donald Trump for decades has argued that these pleas are often, they lead to unjust outcomes. For everyone, regular people as well, not just his former CFO.
I mean, he's well known for that. He is well known for making that point.
It's consistent. I have to give him credit where it's due.
So he's complaining about the judge. Don Jr. did something particularly vicious by posting a picture featuring the judge's daughter. So they're going after the family members. It's just gross. Now keep in mind, if Trump is convicted of the 34 counts of falsifying documents, each count carries a possible maximum sentence of 4 years in prison. It's discretionary, meaning the judge will get to decide how much time, if any, Trump spends behind bars. And so maybe keep your powder dry and don't attack the judge the way you've been attacking him, because if you do get convicted, he gets to make a decision about your sentence. Now, a few more details about the judge here. He is a veteran of the New York court system with 16 years on the bench. He did, in fact, preside over the case against Trump's or the Trump Organization's CFO, Alan Weisselberg. And Trump is not happy about that. So he thinks that this is a witch hunt. He thinks that there should be a different judge presiding over this case, but he doesn't get to pick and choose who the judge is. He doesn't get to pick and choose how this case plays out. Now his defense attorneys are trying to get the case thrown out. They're arguing that they can use the so-called Clayton motion. Have you heard of this?
You're gonna have to talk about it.
It's unique to New York, and the argument is you should throw out the case even if there is merit to the allegations in the name of justice. It's a really weird, basically.
So it's a get out of jail free card.
Pretty much,
basically.
Yeah. And I think the argument here is he's a former president. This sets a bad precedent. So it's better if we just throw this out.
Which would set a great precedent.
Which would set the best.
Only the most awesome.
The best precedent, the biggest precedent. Delicious precedent.
Okay. I love that they understand that if you just say to America, hey, so.
Oh God, it's about to start. Okay. It's about to start.
We'll return to that.
Okay. Few American as I can be free.
Isn't this yet another song that he has been asked many times to stop using?
Probably, but he can't help himself. I love when he comes in, he does this a bunch of times.
I'm so excited.
Like a seal.
So this is awesome. I just want to go to prison.
Okay, but a few more details on the Clayton motion. It states that it is in the interest of justice, regardless of the merits of the case, to dismiss the case.
I mean, depending on how you'd like to define justice, perhaps.
Unique New York.
Yeah.
It is unique to New York.
Those two guys that you just saw, the older guy and the younger guy, they sum up every male supporter of Donald Trump. Both the young and the old look exactly like that, every single one of them. It's weird.
Yeah, so, all right.
Great camera position, good staging.
People are fired up.
Anyway.
So after his arraignment in New York, Donald Trump traveled back to Florida. He is at Mar-a-Lago to do this press conference. He is already 9 minutes late. And that is annoying considering I have already been on air for 2.5 hours and would like to get off camera as soon as possible.
It's inconsiderate of him, really. He should have been thinking of you.
Should have been thinking about me.
Look, I guess we have to, again, give some credit, except this time I'm not being as sarcastic. There is actually a crowd there. In New York, he mostly failed. Like, most of the people there were CNN camera people. Like, but he has some people there that looks like at least dozens.
No, I mean, look, he is popular among the Republican electorate. There's no denying that. It doesn't serve us. It doesn't serve us well to pretend like he's not popular with the Republican base. He is.
But I was surprised at how much of a just nothing the New York thing was.
And look, I think that might also have something to do with the fact that January 6th taught some of his supporters important lessons.
Yeah.
Maybe don't riot.
Maybe just let someone else do it.
Yeah,
maybe.
Or if you're gonna protest, which is totally fine, don't get violent. And I'm 100% supportive of that, even if I'm against the message that the supporters are trying to carry.
Yeah. The crazy thing is, it says text Trump to 88022. The crazy thing is, you can actually text any word you want. Doesn't have to be Trump. I can think of others that I would text to that number. I'm just saying, you can't, hypothetically, you shouldn't. You're not a Trump supporter, why would you?
You're a criminal. All right, let's do it. Let's hear what he has to say.
God bless you all.
We're gonna count which one. What's your number? I guess 10.
And I never thought anything like this
I thought about 12.
could happen in America. Never thought it could happen.
Well, it did. It did.
The only crime that I have committed is to fearlessly defend our nation from those who seek to destroy it.
Not
From the beginning, the Democrats spied on my campaign. Remember that? They attacked me with an onslaught of fraudulent investigations. Russia, Russia, Russia. Ukraine, Ukraine, Ukraine. Impeachment hoax number 1. Impeachment hoax number 2. The illegal and unconstitutional raid on Mar-a-Lago right here. The lying to the FISA courts, the FBI and DOJ relentlessly pursuing Republicans. The unconstitutional changes to election laws by not getting approvals from state legislators. The millions of votes illegally stuffed into ballot boxes and all caught on government cameras.
You're being investigated for your election denial. Like, stop.
Imagine if Bernie just came out. He just whined and whined and whined. He doesn't do that.
The millionaires and the billionaires.
Yeah, but that's about something real, not just about, they've been so mean to me.
I know.
According to the pollsters, would have made a 17-point difference in the election result.
Oh my God.
Like 20 million people would have changed their mind.
16.9. It would have been in our favor. Not my favor, our favor, because our country is going to hell. And we remember the 51 intelligence agents who said Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. It didn't exist. It was Russian disinformation. Remember that?
Laptop. Where
and that was
is
all
the bad
confirmed
thing that's
strongly by
supposed
the
to be
FBI.
on it?
When they
Other
all
than
knew
dong
that
photos,
Just
I
publish the
understand
entirety of the laptop. I don't care.
Yeah, I don't.
And so much more.
I'm sure they've had it. There's no way that Tucker and Sean haven't seen it.
And now this massive election interference at a scale never seen before in our country. Beginning with the radical left, George Soros-backed prosecutor Alvin Bragg of New York.
It has begun.
Who campaigned on the fact that he would get President Trump. I'm gonna get him. I'm gonna get him. This is a guy campaigning. He wanted to get President Trump at any cost, and this before he knew anything about me. Didn't know a thing about me. He was campaigning. As it turns out, virtually everybody that has looked at this case, including rhinos and even hardcore Democrats, say there is no crime.
They don't say
and that it should never have been brought. Never have been brought. Everybody.
Is he going to attack the appearance of Stormy Daniels?
Even people that
Definitely
aren't big fans have said it. They said this is not the right thing to do. It's an insult to our country, as the world is already laughing at us for so many other reasons, like our open borders, our incompetent withdrawal from Afghanistan, where we left behind American citizens.
Are you going to talk about the trial?
Worth of
I don't think he wants to talk about the merits of it, no.
Lost 13 magnificent young lives and far too many to mention that are so badly hurt with the loss of arms and legs and facial obliteration. The most embarrassing time in our country's history, in my opinion. Then our give up on energy independence and even energy dominance. We're going to be dominant within 6 months, more than any other nation times 2. We had this all just 3
Don't
years
try to
ago,
do
our
math.
raging crime statistics. If you look in Democrat-run cities, numbers the likes of which we have never seen before, the open threats by various countries of the use of nuclear weapons, something never mentioned or discussed by outside nations during the Trump administration, and which could very well lead under the Biden administration's leadership to an all-out nuclear World War III can happen.
Engaged in a Twitter
Not
back
very
and
far away
forth
from it.
with the leader of North Korea about using nuclear
An
weapons.
economy that has been crippled by the biggest inflation we have seen in more than 60 years, and a military that I used to defeat ISIS in 4 weeks. They said it would take 4 years. 4
Actually,
weeks.
the Kurds helped us defeat
kill
ISIS, and then you
al-Baghdadi
allowed
and
the Turks
Soleimani.
to come in and slaughter them in
That has
Syria.
now gone woke at the top levels by trying to indoctrinate everyone down to the lowest ranking patriot. But now they have really stepped up their efforts by indicting the 45th president of the United States, who received $75 million votes, which is more than any sitting president in the history of our country.
Biden is the sitting president, and he got millions more than that. This is factually inaccurate, buddy, but you can try again.
And in the wings, they've got a local racist Democrat district attorney in Atlanta who is doing everything in her power to indict me over an absolutely perfect phone call, even more perfect than the one I made with the president of Ukraine. Remember, I kept saying that's a perfect call.
This is like if ChatGPT did a Trump rally.
Nobody said, sir, you shouldn't say that. Many people on the phone
Many people.
were hung up in disgust because of something I inappropriately said, because nothing was said wrong. In fact, at the end of the call, we agreed to continue our conversation about election fraud, and election fraud, specifically in Georgia, at a later time. Many people on the phone, including lots of lawyers, nobody found anything wrong with that perfect call until a book promotion tour many months later. All of a sudden they say,
on
you know, I
tape
remember
asking
Trump
Georgia election
making a
officials
call.
to find him,
Let's
what,
look at that.
11,000 votes?
This
Yeah,
fake
but nobody on
case
the call
was
had a
brought
problem with
only
it. It was a
to
perfect phone
interfere
call.
with the
Nobody
upcoming
had a problem.
2024 election, and it should be dropped immediately.
This is kind of seeming like one of his campaign speeches, effectively.
Yep. I'm bored so far.
Then you have a radical left lunatic known as a bomb thrower who is harassing hundreds of my people day after day over the boxes hoax. You know, the boxes hoax, as we call it.
No, we don't.
Just so everyone
No one calls
knows,
it boxes.
We don't.
what's
I
known
don't
as
think
the
you did
Presidential
prior
Records
to
Act,
today.
which was designed and approved by Congress long ago.
It's a little
just for
incriminating
this
to refer
reason.
to the top secret document.
Under the act,
Stash.
I'm supposed to
Yeah, the
negotiate
boxes
with NARA, the National Archives and Records Administration, which as of this date is a radical left troublemaking organization that red flags the Constitution of the United States and the Bill of Rights as dangerous and triggering. Can you imagine?
No, I can't.
This is what we have to deal with.
So when I want to reassure my
But there is
supporters
no
that I'm going to be
criminality
fine
under the
legally, what I do is I
Presidential
gather them all
Records Act.
together, and then I do
That
an
is not
exhaustive
what it's
rundown
all
of
about.
all the different crimes
We
I'm
were
alleged to have committed,
negotiating
one
in a
after the
very
other.
good faith, proper way, in order to return some or all of the documents that I openly and in very plain sight brought with me to Mar-a-Lago from our beautiful White House, just as virtually every other president has done in the past. When FBI and DOJ officials with NARA were here, I told my lawyer to show them the very secure storage room in which they were locked. The FBI's sole request in writing
He's
was,
scared.
could you please
He's
put
talking
another
about all
lock
the other
on the door?
Why bring that up?
investigations, because he's like, man, they got me for this little one.
It's a lot different.
What are they going to do to me when
the
it comes to
Biden
the top
situation,
secret
isn't
and
it?
classified documents?
Yeah, and
The
I'm
next thing I
assuming
know,
he's
we were
familiar with the
raided by
update
many
about their
gun-toting
efforts after the
FBI
subpoena to go through and cull
Who
out
took whatever
documents
they
to
wanted,
hide.
including my passports and medical records. Everybody
We
was
know
in
how
shock.
touchy you get about your
Nobody had
medical
ever heard
records.
of
I mean,
such
you'll
a
break
raid
into
before.
a doctor's
Can't even
office and
believe
steal
it.
them.
I think that could happen today. I immediately thought of the Fourth Amendment that protects against unreasonable search and seizure. But they did it anyway because our justice system has become lawless. They're using it now, in addition to everything else, to win elections. Apparently, they're not looking at me through the view of the Non-Criminal Presidential Records Act. They came up with a new one. This is a new one. And they're looking at me through the Espionage Act. Think of that. How does that sound? Of 1917, where the penalty is death. Even though that has absolutely nothing to do with openly taking boxes of documents and mostly clothing and other things to my home, which President Obama has done, the Bushes have done, Jimmy Carter has done, Ronald Reagan has done. Everybody's done. In fact,
There's no evidence that any other president took top secret documents that you can only review in a government facility from the White House to their personal homes.
Intentionally. And
Intentionally.
then was told to give them back and refused to and hid some, then gave some back but kept the others, and then was asked to give the rest and wouldn't, so they had to do a raid.
But you know what? Thanks for reminding everyone that you're also facing that investigation, Trump. Real smart. Good
he's
move.
only looking at Trump, yet Joe Biden took massive amounts more documents. Even removed many boxes to Chinatown. You believe that? Just got $10 million from China. Where did that come from? I guess they were banking on Hunter's expertise and had others stored in unsecured offices in Pennsylvania and strewn all over his garage floor where his now very famous Corvette is also stored. All over the floor,
He has a Corvette?
including
Does he really have a
classified
Corvette?
documents.
Yeah, he has
Joey
a Corvette.
baby.
It has nothing to do with the documents.
Perhaps most importantly, he has 1,850 boxes in Delaware.
Oh, that's a lot of boxes.
Which he is refusing to give up.
Sounds like a box hoax
But
to me.
isn't that real obstruction? That's obstruction. As president, I have the right to declassify documents.
So if they ask you to give boxes back and you
process
refuse
is
to, according to him, that's obstruction and that's a crime.
Take them with me. It's automatic. Declassify. Biden was vice president. He had absolutely no right to declassify as vice president. He doesn't come under the Non-Criminal Presidential Records Act. He comes under the very criminal Federal Records Act.
Okay, great. Let's prosecute him too. Can we move on?
Because they don't follow the law, which has very severe
Coming
penalties.
into one of these speeches, if
He
you
had
don't
classified
daily follow
documents that he
all of the
took
Trump world
while he was a
stuff,
senator,
the references make no
which is
sense.
absolutely
Like
inexcusable.
his famous
And other
Corvette to
senators,
us, I
including
know that he has one. For all I know, Jesse Waters has done 9 hours on
But
his
he's not
Corvette
being
at this
harassed
point.
and
Like they have a cinematic universe.
Like the
You have to have
people
watched all the Disney Plus shows and the movies and the spin-offs and read the
In
graphic
fact, they
novel
seem to have
get what any of this
forgotten
means.
about his documents entirely.
This is gonna be a
so
long
many
speech.
thousands and thousands. It's okay with him.
He's just riffing, by the
They
way.
like to say that I'm obstructing, which I'm not, because I was working with NARA very nicely until the raid on my home. But Biden is obstructing by making it impossible to get the 1,850 boxes or explain why many documents were located in Chinatown. Can't explain it. Why were they in Chinatown? I don't know. Lastly, I'm under investigation. This time a civil investigation by another racist in reverse who also campaigned on, I will get Trump.
Racist in reverse means that they're a person of color. That's literally all that it means.
Campaign. Never ran for office. I will get him. Her name is Letitia James. And she proclaimed while campaigning, quote, "I look forward to going into the office of the Attorney General every single day, suing him and then going home." Before she knew me. She announced, "What is fueling my soul right now is Trump." And that she had her eyes on Trump Tower. Those eyes are focused on Trump Tower. Didn't know the young lady. She even assured her supporters in an election promise that we're going to definitely sue him. We're going to be a real pain in the ass. He's going to know my name personally.
Apparently it worked.
She just mentioned a lot.
And then she claimed that I was an illegitimate president. Think of that. With all we did.
It's weird when you accuse a sitting president of being an illegitimate president,
for
right?
like years and years, and insist that you actually won. That would be wild.
History, right to try, people able to get drugs now that aren't approved. Hopefully you don't have that problem. Letitia James vowed to use every area of the law to, quote, investigate President Trump and his business transactions. Those transactions are going to be investigated, she said. And that of her family and his family. Because we're going after his family and we're going after them hard. This is all before entering office and all before knowing anything at all about me. But she was going to get me. This is why, along with unrelenting crime, so many people and companies are leaving New York. She said that I falsified my financial statements, but in fact, we're proving and will prove that my financial statements were substantially more than we submitted, not less. And in all cases, have a strong disclaimer clause in them, which tells the institutions that may look at that if they want to.
Sounds like fraud, is what you're describing.
Not to rely on the statement.
Dude,
but
they've got a problem more than you're saying. That sounds like a fraud you just did.
Very underleveraged.
How do you know his lawyers are
all the
circus clowns? Like, how are you allowing this to happen right now?
Have very little debt relative to the value of assets.
As long as he doesn't directly threaten the judge,
one bank has lost
I think they think, sure, he's lying to his supporters, but he does that all the time. Look, one of the reasons why I don't mind this as much as I normally would is because at least we have one thing where the indictments have now come out, and we have others where it looks like they're going to. All of these nonsensical claims that are based on literally nothing, they don't matter once the legal process has actually begun.
Yeah.
I hope. When you're hoping that someone will actually push through and investigate him, then all of this bluster matters. But hopefully he's just going to be a participant now in a legal process.
Great business with my family, built a fantastic business.
Ridiculous, by the way.
I have
so
a son
gaudy.
here who's done a great job, and I have another son here who's done a great job.
I'll get back to you with their names.
Hey, Tiffany. And Ivanka and Barron will be great someday.
I have a son who did a great job. Another son who did a great job.
Smart.
Look at Tiffany.
But I have a great family, and they've done a fantastic job, and we appreciate it
Poor
very
Tiffany.
much. They've gone through hell. So she's suing me over banks that weren't defrauded when she should be focused on violent crime that's driving people out of the state. This is a persecution, not an investigation. She's put our family through hell. It's cost hundreds of millions of dollars to defend, but our heads are held very, very high. They want to settle the case, but I want no part of that.
We'll see.
Okay.
So here we
settled before.
It's where we were today, in a city that was so great just 4 or 5 years ago. But now we're there. Spent time there today, as you possibly read, with a local failed district attorney charging a former president of the United States for the first time in history.
How is he a failed district attorney?
On a basis that every single pundit and legal analyst said, there is no case. There's no case. They kept saying, there's no case.
Look, it might be that they end up failing. That is a failing of the law. That's it. There very much should be a case. He clearly spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to affect the result of an election and went through complicated machinations to hide that. If that's not illegal, it's only because people like Donald Trump have helped to elect people who are going to write the campaign finance laws in a way that allows them to get away with this.
The criminal is the district attorney because he illegally leaked massive amounts of grand jury information.
They really think that that's a great point. First of all, we have no idea if he did.
There's no evidence that he leaked anything.
But what's the difference? The number of indictments was released 2 hours before the document was out. How would that matter? He leaked that he was going to be arrested next Tuesday. Now, sure, he was lying, but
his administration was riddled with leaks.
But leaks matter if it allows you to know something you wouldn't otherwise know. That's when leaks and whistleblowers matter. Getting a 90-minute jump on something, an irrelevant detail that we had already heard.
Right.
What's the difference?
In order to get Trump. Can you imagine that? Hillary Clinton's lawyer, Democrat lawyer, Democrat firm. Ultimately, he quit as chief prosecutor because Bragg didn't think he had a case. Think of that same guy that brought this ridiculous thing today.
That is true. 2 prosecutors quit Alvin Bragg's team because they didn't think Bragg was going to pursue criminal charges. And then Bragg did. So big ups to Alvin Bragg.
A very different, obviously, interpretation than his.
Really reprimanded. He was reprimanded so strongly. I've never seen anything like it. I've probably the end of it. But what he did was probably very illegal. But he was very, very strongly reprimanded. Even District Attorney Bragg was furious with him. They were having a tremendous fight in the office because of it. But hope is never lost because various prosecutors in the DA's office also quit because they thought President Trump was being treated very unfairly. How about that? Isn't that great? Oh, I love them. I'd like to meet them. I'd like to meet them. The DA's office
want us to be past this era of American politics.
Had a 100%. It's
super embarrassing. An absurd thing that we have to deal with. Who have done
this to President Trump. That was the title. Isn't that nice? They immediately had to take it down. Meanwhile, overall crime in New York was up 30% last year. Much more than that the year before, with felony assaults, robberies, and burglaries all up by massive, massive numbers. Not the same place that I know, not the same place that you know. And this is where we are right now. I have a Trump-hating judge with a Trump-hating wife and family whose daughter worked for Kamala Harris and now receives money from the Biden-Harris campaign, and a lot of it.
Explore Infinity in our member
section
section
says
the judge is listening, Trump.
Who worked for me for many, many years.
Keep talking about the family.
Yeah.
That if you admit your guilt, you will be in jail for 90 days. But if you don't, if we go through a trial and you're found guilty, you're going away for 10 years and maybe longer, which for a 75-year-old man with a great family really means life.
If he had a bad family, it wouldn't be so bad. But it's the great family that really makes it feel like life.
It's a vacation.
Yeah.
It's right out of the old Soviet Union. That's where we are. They said, you say anything about Trump, meaning that's bad, and you won't even have to serve the 90 days. You'll walk free. And they say that to many of my employees. We have this Jack Smith lunatic threatening people every single day through his representatives. They're threatening jail terms. But talk about Trump and you'll go free. This is where we are as a nation. Who would have thought they can't beat us at the ballot box, so they try and beat us through the law.
I feel like we have.
That's the country in which we live, however, right now. The USA is a mess. Our economy is crashing. Inflation is out of control. Russia has joined with China. Can you believe that?
Remember when Trump kept pushing the Federal Reserve to continue quantitative easing and super low interest rates, which, you know, kind of led to what we're experiencing now with the economy? I remember that.
Coalition would have never happened if I were your president. Would never have happened. nor would Russia attacking Ukraine have happened. All of those lives would be saved. All of those beautiful cities would be standing. Our currency is crashing and will soon no longer be the world standard, which will be our greatest defeat, frankly, in 200 years. There will be no defeat like that. That will take us away from being even a great power. If you took the 5 worst presidents in the history of the United States and added them up, they would not have done near the destruction to our country as Joe Biden and the Biden administration have done. Incredibly, we are now a failing nation. We are a nation in decline. And now these radical left lunatics want to interfere with our elections by using law enforcement. We can't let that happen.
Thus far, he's avoided, other than mentioning the family of the judge, which is a problem. He hasn't yet called for massive protests.
With all of this being said,
is that something?
And with a very dark cloud over our beloved country,
he would use this to attack Ron DeSantis.
I have no doubt, nevertheless, that we will make America great again. Thank you very much. And God bless you.
That's it?
And God bless America. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
He's tired. He's gone on a couple flights today. It's too much already.
I'm proud to be an American, where at least I can be free.
Does anybody look at that room and think, this is nice? I do not.
USA. USA. USA.
No, that was great. I thought he was gonna go on for 3 hours. He was all over the place. There was no core message in that speech.
It was a stream of almost consciousness.
You know, but seriously, I mean, he's obviously upset. There was no real message there. He just riffed for, I don't know, how long was that, 30 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, he went through most of all of the cases. He mentioned Jack Smith, I guess. So he sort of tangentially mentioned the January 6th investigation. So he mentioned most of those. He attacked all of the figures involved in these. So basically that speech amounts to a day and a half of his posts on Truth Social.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look, I think strategically for him, using this as an opportunity when he knows the vast majority, I would assume that if an address by him is gonna draw a lot of MAGA people to watch, it's gonna be this one. Use this one to attack Ron DeSantis, because you can actually get something out of that. Telling them to hate the DA and the judge, that's already locked in. They all hate Bragg. Once they learn who the judge is, and he'll have them at one. Once he has that, they hate them. Yeah. That's easy. I don't know why you focus on that. Is what we just saw supposed to be him demonstrating strength? He seemed tired to me.
I think what that was, to be frank, was just an effort to fundraise. I really think that's what that was about, because there was no point to that speech. I think that he accidentally gave his thought process away, or whatever you want to call it, because it was clear that he's concerned about the other investigations and what that might lead to. Because I gotta be honest, I did not have much faith in Alvin Bragg. I did not have much faith on this indictment. I did not think this indictment would ever happen. I remember
it took years and years and years.
I remember being very critical of Alvin Bragg after 2 of his prosecutors jumped ship, because they're like, this is not a serious prosecutor. Alvin Bragg, this district attorney, he's not gonna press criminal charges, so we're not gonna waste our time. And I remember being really irritated by that, because it just felt like every district attorney, every prosecutor who was considering investigating Trump and potentially prosecuting Trump got scared and then pulled out. And I thought that was what was happening with Bragg. But to Bragg's credit, he decided to pursue this. Do I think that it's political? Yeah, I think there's an element of this that's political, but that still doesn't answer for the crimes that he committed, right? And I do believe he committed these crimes because people surrounding him suffered the consequences of that. Michael Cohen, his former fix-it attorney, he went to prison over the hush money payments.
Under Trump's DOJ, yeah.
Under Trump's DOJ, exactly. Yeah. So why is it that people surrounding Trump keep getting caught up in his criminality, but Trump himself doesn't ever face any consequences?
Yeah, I mean, he's had to pardon multiple people. Manafort and Roger Stone and others they've all suffered the consequences. Everyone around him was doing crimes, and he is just an angelic being who has never done anything wrong.
Yeah.
Some people believe that. I think it's madness.
Now, to be fair, I don't think Trump had anything to do with what Bannon did. Bannon just stole money from Trump supporters by pretending like he was gonna build a wall. So he crowdfunded an insane amount of money and then put it in his pocket.
Yeah.
So that is why he was prosecuted and then Trump later pardoned him. That was actually, I think, his final act before leaving the White House. So anyway. All right, so let's go for like another 4 minutes. At the top of the hour, we'll take a break and we'll switch over to our members only stream. If you're watching this live right now, you're able to do so because we've made this portion of the show public for everyone, even though it's typically for our members only. You can become a member where we do all sorts of members only exclusive content. Go to tyt.com/join to become a member, or you can click on that join button if you're watching us on YouTube. Members help support the show. They help fund the show so we don't have to rely on any corporate sponsors or corporate advertising. And without them, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing. So thank you for your support, and we will be doing a members only analysis at the top of the hour. John, final words on this before we wrap?
Yeah, I think it was a wasted opportunity. Look, the people in the room seemed to like it. They cheered occasionally. There's no way that they weren't bored for a significant part of that. They have heard him say every one of those words in roughly the same order many, many times. But they like him. I'm sure it produced enough little tiny clips that Fox is going to use them for the next day or two. Not because they actually liked that speech or believe that he's innocent, they don't, but they need to reassure him that they don't hate his guts and think that he's a demon. So they'll play those and they'll comment on it, and I'm sure Jeanine Pirro will Pinot Noir her way through a defense of Donald Trump tomorrow. So he's gonna get what he wants in terms of the news cycle. But again, like I said, all that stuff is free. They were gonna do that.
Yeah.
I think why not use this as an opportunity to hit Ron DeSantis? He even had the opening.
We just love the drums. Let's keep it real.
Well, I want something.
Yeah.
What I got was nothing. What I got was a bleat on Truth Social.
Ridiculous. I mean, there was no point to it. He was just all over the place, right? There was really no focus. And honestly, the fact that he's still repeating election lies, knowing that he's facing an investigation in Georgia for how he tried to overturn the election there, not a good look. And also, even his base is sick of it. Like get over it. You lost the election, move on, but he can't help himself.
Yeah, look, some people might be wondering, well, okay, aside from the Ron DeSantis thing, what could he have used this for? Well, he could, and he's had months to put this together, have come up with some better explanation for the business expenses, like some better explanation for what happened with the call with Georgia, some better explanation for almost literally any of these things. What he instead did was give the same sort of fig leaf excuse that he always does. The call was perfect, people were on it, they didn't drop off. Yeah, you can say that. And Trump fans are like, yeah, that makes sense. If everybody doesn't hang up, then I guess it's not a crime. But that doesn't change the status quo. That doesn't win over anyone. Saying that the call with Ukraine was perfect, it's a meaningless statement at this point. It literally changes nothing. And when it comes to what you did with Stormy Daniels, this could have been an opportunity for him to come out and say, like really like throw a bomb and be like, you know what? I've had personal failings in the past. I have tried to shield my wife and my family from them, but that nothing of any of this had to do with the campaign. Thus, this cannot be the felony that they say it is. He could have done something to change the status quo, but instead he just repeated the same sort of obvious lies about what happened that he said in this case for literally years.
So before we switch over to our members only stream, I just want to say howdy to our new members. That includes Douglas Carson. We've got Annie Kolarulik, Omer Fancy, Richard Marrow, Derek Fike, Dallas David Ochoa, Marcus Trawick, Gillian C, RJ, thank you RJ, great handle, I really appreciate it, and Susan Engelhardt. Thank you for becoming members. We're gonna have an awesome analysis about this speech and what the future holds for Trump right now after this break. We'll see you there.
Forget it, Jake, it's Chinatown. China.
Russia